the quiz? How did it go? You find it very tough, very easy, or it was okay? Okay, no response. Okay, fine. So, okay, fine. So I can see some text. All right. All right. So, yeah. So I guess the results will be out soon about the quizzes and all, and then maybe you can. I guess the solution. I mean, the answer key is out, right? So you can refer to that, and then these questions are also good for practice for others. I mean, the coming quizzes and coming exam also, right? So you can expect similar questions. And with the quiz one, most of you get the idea of okay, what kind of questions we will be dealing with throughout the course. Okay, right. So yeah, some found it easy. That is really good to know because yeah. So I mean, with the concepts we tried with, I mean, with the initial doubts so many people had, it is now that you are finding it easy, it is really good. Okay, fine. All right. So yeah, so what we you must have read the title of the session, right? So it is understanding Flask SQL alchemy. So although we are in week 6, we will be as we have done, we have continued where we left off, right? So in the last solve with instructor session, we talked about Flask, right? How it works, how to I mean, how to serve HTML pages on the web. That is something we saw. And now, so till that point, we did not have any integration with the database. So although you have seen the content of week 5 and screencasts of week 5, this may have given you a lot of idea of how to connect database with your application and how to store all the records and whatever you are storing in the database, how it is actually done. But so as we go ahead with the content of solve with instructor, we will also build up on what we have done. So since we have completed Flask and we did not have any exposure to how we deal with models, that we will be seeing in today's session. And as you may have also seen, now this is important that tomorrow we also have an extra session, right, which is at the same time 4 to 6. It is mainly because the content that we will be taking today might get extended to some part and we may not be able to finish it within the duration of 2 hours, right? So what we are trying to do here is something that is beyond the scope of 2 hours. And again, since we will be looking at so many terminologies connection here and there, we do not want a lot of gap to come between it, so that that is the reason we had it a consecutive session. Okay, so now we have taken, I mean, we have arranged one extra session tomorrow, so that whatever is left over today will be taken over in the next session of tomorrow's. And we will keep the Saturday session of this week reserved for what it was intended to be done. So basically we'll have probably so it is open session of week 6, right? So probably we'll have, I mean, discuss questions of week 6 and all the questions till week 6, I would say, right? All right, so let me go with the today's agenda. Today what we will do is we'll try to understand what is Flask SQL alchemy, how does it work, and how do we integrate our application with the database using Flask SQL alchemy. Okay. With that in mind, we will see. So now that we are in week 6, you may definitely have been gone through some of the terminologies, like, or the entity relationship, right? We discussed this term before. So there is some entity relationship that we define between the two tables that are there in the database, and the most frequently used relations, or mostly the relations that we use are one to many and many to one. Sorry, many to many, right? So these are the two relations that we will be studying today, and try to define how they are created using Flask SQL alchemy, how we will set up tables for that, right? So this will also help you in I guess the week 5 lab assignment. and probably in definitely in project, right? So there is one thing that apart from this, there is also one thing that we will study is to handle CRUD operations, right? So with the involvement of Flask, and we have been talking about CRUD a lot of times, we will also be seeing how CRUD operations are performed on the database, right? We have done that before. I mean, for the week 3, week 4, we have done that in some or the other way. But I mean, in this sessions, when we integrate our application with the database, uh, the operations CRUD have more meaning, right? Because the CRUD operations were I mean, originally defined for a database, right? So once the database is integrated, we will do that with our application, right? So this is first part, understanding how the tables are created. I mean, how we integrate, how models are created, right? And how tables are created in the database. And the second part of it would be to create a full-fledged application, right? So we'll create so whatever we will do in today's session will not have anything I mean related to Flask application, right? We will not be creating Flask application. This is more to understand about what we say. Sorry. Okay, so this is more to understand about the models, and then once we are done with the models, we will select one of the entity relationship and create a full-fledged application, right? And there we will define what are the operations, how are controllers performing operations on models, right? So that is the reason we have divided this session into two parts. Okay, all right. So any doubts till now? I mean, anything, any confusion?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay, fine. All right. So what I'll do is I'll share my screen. So we'll be going with very, basic from the scratch, right? I'll share my screen and I should, yeah, I'll share the entire screen so that whatever applications we use, we must be able to see this, right? So I hope my screen is visible. And
Yes, sir.
right. So yeah, for this, whatever we will do today, I will be doing that on Sublime Text, right? So you can use Replit, no issues with that. You can use VS Code, okay? Again, no issues with that. I will be doing it on Sublime Text, and you can also follow with Sublime Text if you have it installed in your system. Any other ID would also do, okay? All right. So let me go to the file system, and I've already created one folder here, right? SWI week 5. So my screen is big, so I don't know if you are able to see this. Uh, okay, but this is SWI week 5, right? Just one folder created, and this is a blank folder. So we will be creating our files in this folder. Okay, and for the same, I will open this folder directly. So currently week 5 is open, but I'll open this folder uh, directly. Okay, and we don't need this. All right. Okay, so let me see if you should be able to see now. And the operations that we do on, I mean, the program that we write, and we will perform some operations on that. So those operations will be done by CLI, right? So I'll be using command prompt for that. Okay, for that, I'll go back again to this folder, I mean, this folder, and then just simply write CMD. Okay, so I'll have the same, I mean, the root directory open and my command prompt open in the same folder, same root directory. Okay, I'll expand this also. Maybe I'll increase the size so that it is visible. I hope this font is visible. Okay, and we have Sublime Text. All right, so we'll start off with creating a virtual environment, right? We will go here. Okay, so creating virtual environment with the help of Python has a very simple syntax. No, it's not mandatory. So is it not open source now? I thought it was open source. Okay, if it is not, no issues, you can go with VS Code. Okay, and Replit also for that matter. All right. So what I'll do is I'll create a virtual environment. So how to do that? We'll simply write a command Python. Okay. Then there is a flag called -m. All right. Then we'll write venv and then the name of the virtual environment that I want to put. So I'm putting it as my-env. Let's see that. Take some time.
You don't have to use Python 3 here. It means simply Python works.
Yeah, simply Python works. And if we see the folder structure, you see this folder created, right? My-env. So it shows that the virtual environment has been created. Okay. So all the operations will do here. Now, since it is created, let's activate it. How do we activate it? We'll write my-env, then a backslash, we'll write scripts, and then activate. Yeah. So you see that my-env is coming in bracket. I mean the round bracket parenthesis towards the left. So it says that your virtual environment is activated. Now, why we are doing this? We are doing this because we will be installing some modules, libraries like flask-sqlalchemy that we'll be using particularly for this project. Okay, and let's say I want to share later on. I want to share this this project with someone else, or I want to do the same project, work on the same project in some other system, right? So in that case, let's say it has some other system and maybe some other operating system, and maybe it has some other versions of let's say I'm using Flask, right? So there is a chance that the other system has other versions of Flask installed, wherein some of the methods are deprecated. Deprecated meaning they are not used now, right? But my application was using it, right? So for that to work, either I have to install the same version, or I have to see what changes are done in that existing version of the other system, right? What virtual environment does is it creates the environment and it keeps all the libraries, packages installed in same environment, and it keeps the track of those packages and libraries used along with their versions. Okay, so what will happen if I shift to another system and I downloaded, use those packages, I will be able to, use the code that I've written as I am intended to, as it is intended to, right? So this is the idea. Okay, so with that, we will start off with installing the very important thing, that is Flask, right? So we will start with installing Flask. Okay, so the command for that is pip install Flask. Yeah, so it is taking some so it has some dependencies which it installs, right? So it installs like Ginger 2, definitely will be using it. It's dangerous, click, markup safe, all these things it uses. And then other thing that we will install is Flask SQLalchemy, right? Flask SQL. Yeah, right. So now the thing is, one thing that we also do is to keep a track of, I want to keep all these packages installed with their versions in some file. So what I'll do is I'll write pip freeze. What it does, it captures the versions, the packages and their versions. And with this, I will write, with the greater than sign, I'll write yeah. So what it does is it recorded whatever packages and libraries that were installed, their versions, and stored it into requirement.txt. Where is this requirement.txt? In the folder, right? The folder structure that we have created. So if you see here, is it very small? Okay, fine. The main code would be larger. So here, if you see this, you'll see that okay, the packages along with their versions are written. Okay, so next time if you go, if you take this entire folder to another system, what you should do is, and install all the packages that are there. How you should do it is do this. I mean, you will do pip install, then you will give one flag called -r, and then you will write requirements.txt. Okay, so if you hit enter, all the packages that were there along with, I mean, it will install only that version which was there. For example, if here, if I'm saying click 8.3.1, right? So it will install only this version of that. So this is important because, as I said before, right? So deprecation and involvement of some new functions and methods. So it takes care of that. So this is the major reason why we are using virtual environment. Okay, let us go back to CLI. Okay, let's start here. Okay, so now that we have installed all the requirements, we will close this. We don't need requirement.txt. We will create a file. So we'll create a file and then save it as .py. Okay, so we have created a Python file called app.py, and we'll start coding with this, right? So first thing we'll write definitely from flask import flask. Somebody is unmute. Okay, so from flask import flask, and second thing that we'll import is from flask SQLchemy import Hey, somebody unmute. Can you mute yourself? I'm unable to see who's unmute. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay. Okay, not sure if it was only me, but I could hear some background noise. Anyways. Okay, so these two things that we have to install first. Now we'll create the instantiate the application, right? We saw that how to do that. So we will first write app equals to flask and then keep the under variable that is name. So it will take app.py, create app.py as the module, right? This module as the application. And second thing we need to do is we need to instantiate our DB object, right? So we'll write DB equals to SQLchemy, and then we have to provide it app. Okay, so this is creating the DB object of SQLchemy, right? And then we have to pass app as an argument to that. Okay, now the next thing is we need to configure the database, right? So we will be,
this app should be the same as the file name .py file name.
this app should be the name. No, this app is this one.
Yeah, is it the same as the like Python
your
file
app
name?
No, you can have any other name here.
Okay.
Okay, it can be main.py. For instance, if you're using Replit, it will be main.py. Okay, so it should not be similar to this. It should be similar to this, right? Whatever the app you're instantiating here.
Okay.
Flask app.
So what does __name __ do?
So it is a dunder element for the module. So what we are doing here, we are trying to make the module as application. Okay, we are trying to make this module as application. So this refers to the name of your module.
Okay.
All right. An alternative to this would be to write the name of module as string, right? So this is the name of module. This is the name of app, right? This will also work, but generally we do use this. Okay, because if I do that, and somewhere if you open this code and that module name is main, it will never be able to find, right? So for example, if I name this as app2 and I don't change it here, it will never be able to create this module as an application. Okay, so this makes it common. So whatever is the name here in app.py, it will take that name. Okay, so you don't have to worry about what should be kept as a string and what should be kept as a module. Okay. All right,
Yeah,
is that
got it. Thank you.
okay? So once we're done this, so we will be creating some tables, some classes. I hope you know what we are trying to do here. But okay, details we'll try to understand. But yeah, somewhere you have the idea what we are trying to do. So we will be doing that classes. Whatever we do, we at this stage superficially, you know that we will be going to link with database, right? So the next step would be to link our application with a database file that is locally stored in our system, right? We'll be using SQLite database, right? So we will be creating a SQLite database file in our local system. How to configure that? That I'll show you now. So I tell you app.config. This is app.config, right? And then we'll pass on it's some parameter that will config. So generally we can refer to SQLAlchemy documentation for this, but since I know, I'll just write it is SQLAlchemy underscore database underscore URI. Okay, and then we'll write SQLite. This is part of string. You have to give 3 forward slashes. Then I'll write the name, what I want to be, what it should be, name of the database. Name with which a database file should be created, right? So I'll write my data B, okay, and I'll write OM. Okay, so this stands for one to many, right? So since we'll be studying about various relationships, that is one to many and many to many, I want to create 2 different files for that because I don't want to mess with, don't want to mix the code, right? That is the reason I'll be creating 2 different databases. Okay. So with that, you should, later on when you refer to these back, you will know that, okay, this database refers to this and this database refers to this in your local machine. So my data b.om. So OM stands for one to many. Okay. And then we can give the extension SQLite3. Okay, so this is how we configure our database with our application, right? And there is nothing that I've done that we should learn by heart. We can simply go to flask-sqlalchemy documentation. Just give me a minute. All right, so if you see here, we will, connection URI format, right? Let me see. All right, so you see this SQLAlchemy database URI. So when we want to connect with a database that is SQLite, I should use something like this, right? So in the app.config, the bracket should have this, and then the format of our database should be set like this. So here this tmp slash is given, right? So you don't have to worry about this. Slash tmp slash test. You give just 3 slash and give the name of the database, whatever you want to do. Okay. Okay, let us see how it is used.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Do we need to give absolute part of the database or just file name?
File name would be fine because that file will be created in the same root directory.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so you don't have to worry about that much. So, the way I have done here, that is something you should do, right?
Okay.
Okay, so app.config and then SQLite. Let me see if I've done that right. Yeah, SQLite dot and then so we have 4 slashes are given. We have to give 3 slash and name of the database and then extension SQLite3. Okay. Okay, so when we will run this program, this should create a database in our local directory. Okay, so now we'll start off with the application. Creating the models. Okay, so in this session, we will create, I mean, throughout this session, today's session and tomorrow's session, we will work on creating an application, let's say a library for a library, right? So in the library, we will consider that there are multiple sections and there are multiple books, all right? And since we are talking about one-to-many relationship here, we will be creating the model such that they have, I mean, the library is set such that its components are one-to-many relationship. Now, what are its components? As I said, there will be multiple sections and multiple books. Okay, and so in our case, one of the component would be, or one of the table that I want to be created in the database would be section, and the other table that I want to be created in the database would be books. Right? We will also, I mean, we will also put pressure on the fact that multiple books can belong to one section. Okay, right? A section can have so many other books, right? And a book will belong to only one section, right? So it is one to many in that sense, right? So there will be one section, multiple books, and multiple books can belong to that particular section. A book cannot belong to two sections at a time. This is the condition for one to many, right? Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Right. So what we are trying to do, we are creating two models in our application. One would be section, other would be book. All right. And if you relate it with what we call as parent and child for one to many. So whenever we study about one to many relationship in any of the places, for example, in the documentation itself, it talks about parent and child. So why it takes parent and child as an example? Because a parent can have multiple children, but vice versa is not true, right? A children can belong to only one parent. Okay, so we are considering, I mean, the father and mother here. So don't have to worry. Think about, okay, two parents. You don't have to think it that way. One parent. All right. So multiple children can belong to one parent. There cannot be a case where one children belong to multiple parents, right? So in our case, our parent would be section, and child would be the books. Children would be the books. All right, we'll see. Afnan, if that is the key issue, we'll see. No issues. Okay, we are just coding. If we face any error, we'll see the. I mean, if there is any error, we'll ship. No issues. Okay, so we will create this application so that it has two models. I hope that is clear. Now, we'll start creating the two models, right? So we'll create class. What is now? What is actually ORM? Okay, so when we talk about flask-sqlalchemy and sqlalchemy and say that it is an ORM, what do we actually mean? We mean that it is, I mean, with the ORM, what we mean is it is object relational mapper, right? So what we are doing is we are creating some tables in the database, all right? Some records are being put into those tables. That is okay. But how are we dealing it with our application? We are dealing it as class and objects. Okay, so every table in the database refers to every class in our Python application or Python program, right? So here we do not have to worry about the syntax of writing the queries that we would otherwise do in databases, right? So here we will only follow how classes and objects work, right? What happens in the background, I mean, how to map that as tables and their records will be done by SQL. Okay, in our case, it will be flask-sqlalchemy. That is why we are using this ORM, right? Because we do not have to worry about, I mean, we do not have to bother about the way the queries are written, right? And there is also a case where if you are using multiple databases or other databases at other places, the way of writing query and getting information from the database differs, right? So if we hard code those queries here in our application, it would become difficult if the database changes, right? So ORM also takes care of that, right? So here in the app.config, we stated that we are using SQLite database, right? And this is the name of database. So my application will be configured in a way that the classes and objects that I'm writing will be written in the form of query in the database side in the form of SQLite database, right? So whatever is format or syntax followed for SQLite database, it will take care of that. Okay, if I've changed the database to MySQL, and for some reason some of the syntax has changed, we don't have to worry about it, because our flask-sqlalchemy will do that for MySQL, right? So that is the biggest advantage of using flask-sqlalchemy. All right. Okay, moving ahead. So the first class would be section, right? First class would be section, and with that we will create some of it attribute, right? So it will be section ID. Okay, section ID. So let us create as, this is one of the attributes of that we'll be using for the table, right? Yeah. So this is how you create a attribute for that particular class, right? So it will be a column. This section ID would be one of the columns, right? And then then we will specify the type of column, what type of data it will take. Okay, so it will be integer type, right? Now, since I'm stating it as section ID, I will set it as primary key, right? Every table will have a primary key in our case, because why? Because we want to, we want that table, that particular table, to be explicitly known to us. I mean, targeted and accessed, right? So we'll set primary key for this for every column. I mean, for one column each table, right? So primary key, you have to set it to true. Okay, so once we set this primary key is to true, two things we take care of. One is this column will not be left alone, left idle. That is, it is not nullable, it cannot be kept null. Secondly, it will be auto incremented, right? So if let's say if I'm adding multiple entries, section ID will start from 1 and it will keep on incrementing. Okay, setting it to primary key, setting the primary key to true will take care of that. The next would be the name of section.
Sir, auto increment will do that, right?
Auto increment does that. Why I want to do auto increment? See, what happens is, if I want to explicitly make an entity to get auto incremented, then I will set auto increment to true. Okay, if I'm setting primary key to true, I don't have to worry about setting it explicitly auto incremented. Okay,
Primary key will also auto increment.
Yeah, that's what. So if I set primary
So I
key
can
to true,
have only numeric integers only for primary key.
No, you can set. You can have other non-integers also, but then you will have to set how the way they increase. Okay, you will have to manually put them in. Okay, since it is an integer, we don't have to worry about it being auto incremented, because you're already setting it to primary key. Okay, so idea is, whenever we set primary key to true, it takes care of two things. As I said, it will by itself become non-nullable. That is, you cannot keep it empty. And second, it will by itself become auto incremented. Okay. Now let's say, for example, if I have another column that is section number. All right. This is not a primary key, but I want it to auto increment. I don't want to set it as primary key, but I want it to auto increment. In that case, I will explicitly mention auto increment equals to true. Okay. Yeah. Is this clear? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. This other would be section name. Okay, so similarly, we'll do the thing, right? db dot column. Okay, this is one the other column of the table. Okay, since it is name, we will not set it as integer, we'll set it as string. Okay, now this string parenthesis, this string method takes a number. Don't have to put no issues. We can leave it blank, but if we can put a number, it is fine, right? So it will take, the length of the string can be should not go, cannot be larger than 50. What this means, right? So right, this is one of the things. And then here I want to put nullable, right? So you see here, it's one of the suggestions it is giving nullable. If I set it to false, my table will set in a way that I cannot keep it empty. Okay, this is another thing. Okay, so these are the two things that I would want a section must have. It's section ID and section name. Other would be books, right? So I'll create another class called book and do the same thing with this also. So I'll just copy these two columns. I hope this is okay, because same thing I'll be doing. I'll just take care of unnecessary tabs.
Section is the name of the table, and only two columns are there in the section.
Sorry.
Section is the name of the table, class section.
Yes, it will be the name of table. This is the class that we're creating it.
Two columns.
Yeah, it has two columns. One is section ID and section name. Okay. Of that, section ID is primary key and it is of type integer. Section name is not a primary key and it is type of it is of the type string.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Similarly, I'll do that for book. Right. So a book will have a book ID. Okay, and also a book name. Well, it is a bad practice to keep capital names, so I'll just remove that. Okay, so it has book ID and book name. Okay, this is fine because you don't have to worry about this, and this is also fine, I guess. All right. Okay, so these are the two. Yeah.
Sir, here you are setting the string length to be 50. So what about, sir, varchar? How can we set that?
Actually, the string that you're setting it would be set as varchar only in the table.
Okay.
We will see that. Okay. All right. So the thing is, one thing that we will see here, I have used db.column, right? db.integer, db.string. So I'm assuming db is db is a class and taking some of its attribute. db is an object and I'm using some of its attribute, for example, column, right? Column. This is the attribute that I'm using. But the thing is, if I'm to use a method something like this, I need to define that method, right? Column, and then explicitly mention what a column does. Right, I have not done that, so it will not understand what this column does, what this integer does. Right, for that what we will do is we will inherit the class db.model. Okay, so when we create this database model, okay, this db object, db.model is a class which will have all these attributes. Okay, and if I put this as a bracket, it will inherit those properties. My section will inherit those properties. What I want to inherit, this column, integer, string, all these things I need to inherit. So that is what I am doing here, right? Similarly, in book also we'll do the same. We'll inherit the class db.model so that it will have all its attribute inherited by the book. Okay, this is clear.
How this model came, sir?
Yeah, so when we create, so when we create this SQLAlchemy, this SQLAlchemy instantiation creates the model within. Okay, so that is something which is done internally.
Model is yet another class, no?
db.model is a class, yes.
db.model is a class, no? Right?
Yes.
And db also is a class.
Yes. We generally call it instantiation of db. Okay, so we the statement, right? So we call it instantiation of db, right? And generally we refer to it as an object. Okay, so we will not go into literal classes and objects of Python. We will just understand the way they work, right? So we instantiate an object and we call db.model as a class which is inherited by our models, right?
Right.
All right, so yeah, so if we want to do more research on what is exactly object, what are exactly method, we will go to the documentation. But see, the idea is to get how these things work.
Documentation of what? Python.
documentation of SQLAlchemy, flask SQLAlchemy in SQLAlchemy. Okay, but that is okay. I think that is not required. Okay, but
Okay,
you need
then
to
what we should remember so that we can understand properly this DB and this class and object.
Yeah. So see, as I said, I mean, firstly, whenever, even if we work with API, now that you are in week 6, you may have studied, I mean, you may have encountered questions from Flask RESTful. What is that? Flask RESTful is an extension of Flask, which will allow you to create APIs. Okay. So there also, we will instantiate our API. In Flask SQLAlchemy, we are working with an object called DB. So it is important to instantiate that object DB. Right, so this is something we will be following for others also, but what we need to do, if we are using some extension of Flask and importing it in our application, it is important to instantiate it. So first thing you need to remember, object that you are creating has to be instantiated. Okay, second thing that you remember is whatever models that we are creating in our in our code or in this particular app.py, whatever models models we are creating should have some inherited attributes, like for example column, integer. Now how do we get those get those attributes? We'll get it from SQLAlchemy. Okay, so this db.model is something that will take care of these attributes. Okay, so it is better to just know how to use them rather than to to go into depth and see how they are formed. Okay, so here we are trying to understand how to use the db.model class. Okay, so that we can use these attributes called column, integer, string, and all. Okay. Okay, so I'll just move forward with this, right? All right, so currently we have this part, right? So we have created two tables. Can you tell me what is the relation between these two tables? Oh, is there any issue with sound? Am I not audible clearly?
No, sir.
No,
Sound
sir,
is
it's
very
perfectly
fine. Sound is proper.
Sound is fine. Whatever I'm saying, is it clear?
Yeah, it is clear. But
No, not with respect to sound, with respect to explanation.
Explanation. We are confusing whether we are not conversant with this.
Sorry.
This class and this object.
Yeah. See, you don't. You don't go into the depth of what is exactly db.model and what is that. Some things we will have to inherit, right? What
happens, sir, when we write the program in Python, then we confuse what to write or what not to write. Which syntax is correct? This is the problem.
No. Don't worry. With respect to syntax, we'll try to be as clear as possible, right? I hope whatever I'm trying to explain here is clear. So, here what I'm trying to do is
class is clear. Class is clear, sir. But what you are deriving from the DB to this object and class, this is confusing. Okay, how to write independently? You are writing, we are understanding. But when we will do independently, there is no screen. Then how to write?
No. So see, once you are done, once you are able to write, create your own class this way. These 3 lines, 10, 11, 12, right? Okay. If you're able to write this part, it will be, you need not worry about whatever is there inside. You need not worry about what db.models brings. For now, you should know that, okay, it will bring these attributes like column and integer.
Will it be sufficient to mug up these 3 lines so that we copy in the other apps also when we write it?
See, so see, these 3 lines, I will try to explain what each line means here. Okay, so you don't need to mug up. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So what we have done is, first we have created class. All right. That's why I did not write this model initially. Okay. So many things should not be written at first, right? So if I simply wrote section. Okay. This is understood. Simply creating a section as a class. Okay. Yeah. Now I'm creating some of the instances, the attributes of that particular section. Okay. One of its attribute is section underscore ID. Okay. And other attribute is section underscore name. Okay. In the class, I mean, in the Python class, these will refer to the attributes of that class or instances of that class. All right. But now, since this section capital S refers to a table in database, these instances also should have a specific meaning in the database, right?
Yes.
Correct. So in my Python, this section is a class, but in the database, this section is a table, right? In my Python, this section underscore ID is an instance of this class. Section underscore name is the instance of this class. But in case of database, section ID and section name are columns of the table.
Yeah, it is fine. Okay.
Right. So that is what we are trying to do. Now, I have used this db.column and all these methods I've used. Right? How do this class know what are these methods? Because they are never defined in that particular class, right? It is not an method of class, right? But since we have a basic idea that in object-oriented programming, if we have a class and that class has some methods already defined, right? We can create another class and inherit those class. I mean, inherit that class so that we can use those same methods in my class. All right. So what I've done, I'm inheriting db.model, wherein all these methods are predefined. I mean, they are explicitly defined, so that I don't need to.
This db.model is a parameter of this section, class section.
Yeah, you can call it as parameter or argument.
It is a parameter because in the bracket we have what we have learned is we put the parameter of that class.
Correct. But that is, I mean, parameter and arguments are written for method. I mean, right. So when you define a function, whatever comes in that parenthesis is called its argument. Okay.
Yeah.
When you want to inherit a class, okay.
Yeah.
In parenthesis, you write the name of that class.
Okay. db.model is the class.
db.model is a class. So
we
I'll
are
just
inheriting.
Yeah. Correct. So you're inheriting this class. Inheriting the class would mean that methods that are defined in that class in your created class, that is section.
Okay. Automatically it will come. We are not going to.
It will come. Yeah. So I'll just, I mean, in the comment, I'll write that db.model is a class, okay, which is inherited by the class section. Okay. Now, how to inherit it? Just provide it as an argument of that class.
Okay. Let us proceed.
Okay.
So that.
Fine. Correct. So, yeah, correct. All right. So now I have created, I mean, two classes and then some of its instances. Right? Can you tell me what is the relation between these two classes?
No relation, no sir. No, we have not instantiated any candidate key or something like that. So
Correct. So these are independent classes currently. So even if they, I mean, sound like section and book, and as I said that we are working on one-to-many relationship, we have still, I mean, we are yet to describe that relationship or define that relationship, how these class will react, right? So first we will work with these, I mean, these tables only. Let us try to create these tables here. Okay, so what I'll do is, okay, with this done, I'll open the Python interpreter. Okay, simply writing the Python will open the Python interpreter. Then here we can write simple Python codes and run them, right?
Sir,
so whatever
will come in cell also, no? Replit cell will also work like this.
Same. Yeah, replit shell will also work the same way. Okay, so here once I created Python, I mean, once I instantiated the Python shell interpreter, I can run this file, right? So, okay, before that, let me see if there are any errors. Okay, I'll simply exit and simply try to run that file. Okay, the command would be python app.py. Okay, so it is giving some, I mean, it is giving some warnings like SQLalchemy track modification, database URI, right? So you don't have to worry about this. This is user warning, depreciation warning. You don't have to worry about this. For now, we need to know that there are no errors. This means my my code is fine. Okay, so what I'll do is now I'll open the interpreter. Okay, and then from the, I will import all the objects that I have created. So what I have created from app, what I've created DB, right? Then I have created class section. Okay, and then again I've created class book. Okay, let us import these things. Okay, so again it will show the warning. Ignore the warning. Okay, this means that all these three things, DB, section, and book, have been imported. All right. Now, if we see the this part, I said that once we run this program, we will have to stick to. we'll have to put a command that will create a database file here, right? So, what is that command? We'll see here. This is db dot create all. So, what it will do? Let us see. Yeah. So, if I go here. Yeah, here. So what it did, it created this database, right? My data bom.sqlite3, okay, which is the name which we wanted it to give. Okay, so it created this database. Now let's see what is actually the structure of the database. Okay, we will do that with the help of DB browser. Okay, so this DB browser is used to have a look at database and have some primary functions on it. So I just open this database, and we were in week 5, this one and this one, right? Yeah. So if you see this, let me see if it.
Where was this DB browser, sir? In the SQLite?
No. DB browser is actually an application that you can download. Okay, if you do not have DB browser, DB browser, let me see the other thing. Which one is this? SQLite viewer. Okay, let me give the link to this.
Yeah, please share in the chat. These are the problems we are facing.
Okay, just so where are we? Yeah, here. Okay. Now this is a web app. The one we have used is a web app. The link that I've given is a web app, but this is a standalone application which you need to install. Same thing will happen. What I'll do is let me open that part. Okay, so this is open, and then if I go back to file system and drag that DB browser, it should open, right? So yeah, you can see book and section. It has 0 rows, but it has created the tables. Okay, now DB browser will give some more detail. Let me go to here. All right, yeah. So if you see, somebody asked had asked before if the varchar, right? So I had set, the string attribute that I've created in the model will create varchar only. Okay, same with section. So whatever is the string that we are creating, it will create varchar. Okay, integer is integer. Okay, and you can also see that both are not null. And anything else to see? All right, if you observe this, there is a small key like structure right here in the book ID, which shows that it is a primary key. Okay, also it is written here, that is primary key book ID. Okay, and by itself, as I said, it will inherit that. It will by itself become not null. Right, so it is written not null here, right? Book ID integer not null. Okay, so setting it to primary key ensures that it becomes not null. And then the other one, which I explicitly set as not null, will become not null like this. Okay, same with the other. So there is book ID, section, and section ID. So we have the 2 tables ready now. Okay, any doubt here?
So just one small doubt. This Python script was just to create the database, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to create database, I mean, I have created this database. I have instantiated the application. I have not written any code in the application. I have not created any server. Nothing is created. I've just, I mean, I have created these two models, right? Use some commands to create a database with respect to, I mean, database containing those tables. That is what I've done. Okay.
Sir, how it created the database, that part, can you please explain? While compiling it created, or?
No, I did not compile anything. What I did, I simply imported. So this is my CLI, right? I opened the Python interpreter, right? And from the Python interpreter, I imported all the objects and methods and classes that I've created. What I've created, one is the DB object that I've created, right? So if you see here, this is the DB object that I've created. Second thing that I've created was the class section, and third thing is class book, right? I'm sorry if there is a background noise. This is some prayer going on, right? So if I go back to CLI, I'll see that I have imported this DB section and book. Okay, let me just increase the font. So this is a DB section. I've imported that, right? So once I imported that, I encounter some warning which we need to ignore for now. And then since I imported DB, I can write, I mean, I can use it and its method, right? So one of the methods that is defined, predefined by flask-sqlalchemy is db.createAll. What will it do is it will create the database and underlying tables into the local folder that I've set, right?
Okay, got it.
So,
Okay, thank you.
right, yeah. So here, this thing makes sure that I mean, a database file with the extension SQLite3 and name my data BOM is created in the local folder, root current working directory. Right, so that is what I've done. And since I had defined model, it also created the table.
May I ask one question?
Yeah.
Sir, the same code when we run in Replit, then the file will be created in the Replit folder.
Yeah.
Same type of thing will function in that also.
Correct.
Okay.
So you have this.
There is no need to go to this SQLite or the SQL viewer. We can work in Replit only.
No, so I mean, if you can, I mean, the Replit database that is created in the Replit, I am not sure if Replit is capable enough to read your database. Okay, so Replit will not be able to clean your, I mean, read your database. What you need to do is you need to download that database file and open it in DB browser.
Download in Replit.
No. The file. I mean, you can see the three dots appearing.
What link? Yeah, what link you have sent? Na in loop.git hub.
Correct. Yeah.
So where it will be installed, in the system or in the Replit?
See, first thing is this SQLite viewer, right? This is one you're talking, right? GitHub. So yeah. I opened this. Now what I did, let me reload it. Yeah, so what it asks for, download the file here. I mean, drop the file here and load the content, right? Okay. So what I did, I loaded it, the content. I mean, the database that I was created in my local folder, I loaded it here. Okay. Okay. So one way is to load, the other is to drop. I mean, drag and drop, right? So I dragged it and opened it here. Okay. 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 For that, correct. That SQLite, I mean, SQLite3 file must be there in your local system. So if you create, if you're working on Replit, what will happen in your file manager on the left side? I mean, the file browser, right? The database will be created. Layout, yes. From there, I mean, in the tab where you have file, there will be three dots where you can download that particular file, database one. Okay. That database will be downloaded and then you can open it here. So it is kind of a long cut in case of Replit. Okay. Because that editor in Replit, even in Sublime Text,
this becomes long cut, no, sir, because we don't know this. First time we are encountered it. So this becomes long cut. That is becomes shortcut.
Okay, fine. No issues. Yeah, whatever you find easy.
So what is happening the same time? Sometimes SQLite, sometimes Ubuntu, in the screen card, Ubuntu is there. Ubuntu is not working in our desktop.
Okay, fine. Ubuntu, you don't have to worry. All right. Anyway, so see, if I open this, you see this, right? So even Sublime Text is not able to read the database. It is just reading it in some hexadecimal digits. Okay. So for that, we will need something that is explicitly capable of working with database. Now, if I browse data, I see that there is nothing. Okay, browse data, nothing here in book and in the section itself. Okay. All right. So now we will go on with adding some data to this files, right? We go on with adding. Yeah. Someone of you mentioned that SQLite. Sorry, what was mentioned? VS Code can read SQLite file. So actually, VS Code extension can read. VS Code by default will not. You open the VS Code and then you go with. I mean, the search tab. You see VS Code SQLite reader or database reader, something like that. You will get an extension that should be able to read the database. Okay, fine. All right. So once the database is created, what I can do is I can add some data, right? I'll try to add some data to those tables. Although there is no relationship defined, we can simply add the data because they're independent tables. So let's say let us create an object. Okay. So let's say section, right? So S1. How to add a data? Just write the name of class. Okay. And within that class, we have to provide section ID. Is it? We need to provide section ID. Directly, can we work with section name?
So that's the key. If you need to provide it, I think.
Since it is auto incrementing, I think it will be generated automatically.
Yeah, that's what. So all the primary keys that you have set, you don't need to explicitly create them. Okay. You will have to start off with the next column, the following column. If I go back to my app.py, first is the section ID, right? Since it is a primary key, I don't need to even create it by myself. Okay. I can directly jump onto the next column. Okay, so that's what I've done. I have not written section ID. I've directly written section name and given it as a name as history. Okay. So this will create an object. Okay. Once the object is created, I'll have to add this object in the session. Okay. This is how we add the object to the session. Okay. db.session.add and then add the object. Okay. This is fine as far as the CLI is concerned. I mean the command line interface, whatever interface you're working on it right now, this is fine. Okay, because if I see s1 dot section name, it should show me history, right? It is showing me history because my object s1 is added in the session. But let me see if it is added in the database. So if it is section, right? Yeah. So if I even reload, I don't see anything. Why? Because whatever I have added object that I've created is added in that particular session. Yeah, particular session, but it is not added in the database. To add that in the database, what I'll do, I'll just write db dot session. So everything you take in that session and then you commit the session. Okay. Yeah. So once the session is committed, all the changes, what does this mean, or what does this make sure? It makes sure whatever objects that you have created, assigned, and whatever you have done in the session is committed to the database. So now if I check, I'll see that, okay, I see a section name called history. And if you see this, section ID is 1. So by itself, it has assigned 1 as the section ID. Why? Because it was primary key. You don't have to explicitly mention, right? Similarly, I can do for a book, right? So if I go back to CLI, I'll just add book. So let's say my B1 is, just give me. All right. So similarly, similarly, we can add a book, right? So for adding a book, what we can do? We'll simply write this like this. So we can use the classes that we have created as methods here, right? So if you see that I've used the section and book as method. Okay. What I will provide as its arguments, book name equals to whatever. So let's say So this is the book name that I've added, that is World War I. Okay, now once the book object is created, we need to add this object into the session. So how do we do that? db.session.add and then add this object. Okay, once this is added, we need to make sure it is committed. Right? Yeah. So now if I go back to database and check, I'll see that all right, there's a World War I book called World War I and it has book ID as 1. Okay, so this is how. So here I've made sure that I've created two proper tables, functioning tables into my database. Right. All right. Any doubt here?
So can you explain what session is over there?
Yeah. So consider session is a container wherein you will create objects, makes changes, update objects. I mean, this S1 is an object, right? Okay. So if this is the object so I've created here, right? So what happens? Whatever I am writing currently will directly not go into the database. Okay, it will be sent as a container to the database and then the changes are committed. Okay, so whatever objects that I have created or worked with onto the CLI will be created inside that session. Okay, once you make sure that there are no more changes, okay, all the relations are established, whatever you wanted to do, I mean, update an object, delete an object, whatever you wanted to do, that was done. Once that is done, you want now the proper I mean, you want final changes to get committed to the database, right? You don't want dynamic changes to get committed to the database, right? So once you make sure that now these things will not change as in for this particular session, I am sure that okay, this is what I want to be reflected on my database. Okay, so what SQLAlchemy does is it creates a session and which is you can consider as a container. That container will have all the changes, mix-ups, whatever you do, operations that you are doing on the CLI. Once you say that okay, now I am sure that I want these changes to go to the database, I will commit the session. So committing the session is committing all the changes that the session was containing. Okay.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Now that we are using this what you call that file that from flask-sqlalchemy, etc. app.py file. So we can only create the database there, no? Or otherwise we have to come to this command prompt again.
Okay, since you are using app.py, what is it you are saying?
Hello?
No. Can you just repeat what you said?
Hello, no. We wrote the code in that app.py file.
Correct.
Then again we have to come to this command prompt to create the database. Is it correct?
Yes.
So we cannot directly create the database in the API file.
Yeah, we can do that.
Huh?
Yeah, we can do that.
Is it?
Yeah,
so
we can do that.
Then why are we coming back to this command prompt?
We are so why we are doing this is because currently we are not defining any backend. For example, see, let us go back to this code. What you are saying is what we will do when we will create the application. Okay. Now, command line interface, what it is providing me an interface to interact with my application. Okay. For example, if I wanted to write, for example, I wanted to add this. Okay, this session, I mean, S1 is equals to section name history. This entire thing can be taken from here and written here.
Okay.
It can be written here. And then when I will run app.py, all these things will happen. I mean, whatever is written here will happen and same changes will be committed to database. That is okay. But every time I want to change this, if let's say if I want to make this history to geography, I'll need to come back and make the change to the code.
Okay.
Right?
So to create first we have to go to this command line.
Yeah. So what is command line giving me? It is giving, I mean, what is it doing? It is creating an interpreter, Python interpreter. See, what is this? This is a Python file. Whatever
Yes,
you
yes.
write here will be executed when you run this app.py.
Okay.
In command line, what we are doing, we are opening a Python shell so that we can we can run command as and when we want.
Okay.
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 So at this stage, I want only S1 to get created, S1 to get added to the session. So I can write them one by one and then
Okay.
make commit. Make changes to the database. With that, what I've done is I have not disturbed my code in any way.
Okay. Okay.
Correct. I have just
Okay.
opened
Means
the Python shell. Yeah.
Means we are doing this command line only to protect the code, so that
Correct.
we could not disturb the code.
Yeah, we are doing it so that we interact with the application and do not write what we want as we will in the code. This is what we wrote as we wanted. A code
Okay.
is something that is not changing, right? So that is why we are doing same thing in an other shell. Okay, and what we have done, the very first line, if you see, we have imported all the required things from that app. We were not even touched that app.
From app, yeah.
Excuse me, sir. I just asked another thing, that when that code is running, then database will be created, isn't it?
Yeah, no. When the code runs, I mean, when I wrote, so initially when I wrote Python app.py, what will happen? All the code that was there gets executed, right? But one command that is there that I need to explicitly give for the database to create is this db.createAll.
Okay. So it is not to be written in the Flask file, is it?
It is not to be written here. Why? Because every time you run app.py, every time db.createAll will get executed. This means every time a database file is getting created.
Okay.
This is not what you want. Database is to be created only once.
Okay.
Right. So what I've done, I have written some code here in app.py. Okay. Then I've opened another shell where I can write Python code. I have imported some parts of this code, important parts of this code into my shell. Okay. So ran some command to create database, and then again ran some commands to make sure certain changes are happening in the database. With that, what I've done, I have kept my code untouched. I mean, from all the random stuff that I'm doing in the interpreter.
Okay.
Fine. So this will also work. Now, what you are saying is, why can't we write it? We can definitely write. So when we will be creating the application, we'll be creating certain controllers, right? In Flask. All right. So when we will create that app.route defining routes and what should one route do, right? So within that, those routes will be doing this explicitly written. Okay. I will make that clear.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing it. I'm following along in Replit. I have created this app.py Python file, and I went to the shell and asked for a Python interpreter. Then when I'm writing from app import db section and book, it says no module named app.
Yeah, because it's named as main.
No, I have created an app.py Python file, and I have written all this. Yes, all this code that was showing on the screen. What seems to be the problem?
Okay, fine. So, all right. I mean, you have created app.py in your folder structure and then written all the code there, is it?
Yes.
Okay, and you're trying to import from app from the shell, right? The app.py from the shell.
Yes.
Okay, what does it say?
It says module not found error, no module named app.
Okay, no, if you're doing it on shell, are you pressing on run button somewhere?
No, I went to the shell. I wrote Python, so it gave me an interpreter, and then I wrote this from app import all these things, and upon that this error is coming.
Okay.
I have created this folder structure SWI5 mad1, and under that folder I have created this Python file app.py. I'm sorry to waste everyone's time on this.
Okay. Sir, I am getting it. What you're doing.
So the shell is supposed to be open from the same directory, right? In which that app.py is.
Yeah, correct. So you created a folder and then there is file, is it?
Yeah, app.py is inside a folder called SWI5 mad1.
Okay, so you do this, I mean, you have to first do CD and then SWI5, whatever is written. Okay, hit
Okay.
enter.
Okay.
It will go to that directory.
Okay. Okay. I'll do that. Thanks.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, Srinivas, you raised your hand.
Sir, in these both classes, when we define them, we are not initializing them.
Which one? Which classes? Section
Both
and book?
classes, section and book, yes, sir.
Okay. What do you call by initialization? I mean,
sir, any class, this is Python, right? If we initialize
correct.
def underscore init, we write init, right? Init function we have to use, right?
No, that is not required. See, when you are creating object and you write def, I mean init, I mean you are saying that under element, I mean the what we call
Under
that.
init, yes.
Yeah, so I'm exactly not sure with the name. That is, see, init is done so that, and you then write self and all, right? So that is to create that is another way, that is effective way of creating a class. But is that the only way? It is not like that. You can simply create class and create these attributes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what. So yeah, if you go to normal, I mean, if you think about normal object oriented OP, right? In there, therein, whenever you create a class, you will have to again create def underscore init and then self and then create its objects, right? That is one way of doing it.
Well, you're saying that these book and in the classes section and book, the section ID, section name, book ID, book name are attributes on the class book and section.
Are attributes in the class? Yes.
They are not on the instance, but on the class itself.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So this you have created I mean you have created your own class, right? So this can be done.
So these are class attributes, not instance attributes.
Attributes of class, correct?
Okay.
Of class. I mean, see, I have not created any instance of this class. We have created the class and we have created some attributes that belong to class.
Sir, I'm not clear, but I'll check and I'll get back.
Okay.
Because we have learned this Python starting with the init.name, and every time we have to take the attribute of that with init, because we have learned that only, not more than that.
That is basically class constructor, right?
Because we have learned that one, the class object oriented programming section was only for that.
Writing constructor is not mandatory, right?
Yeah, if you do that, if you create any object any number of times, that initialization will happen that number of times. So let's say I am creating 5 objects, so this section ID and section name will be created 5 times. So we don't want that here. We want section ID one time and we want to update that. That's why we are not initializing it.
Okay.
Basically, we are creating a simple structure here. That's it.
Yeah, that's what. That is what I understand. I mean, see, see, there are so many things happening at the background. What if I tell you this db.model is doing that for you? I mean, creating the constructors and all. That is also understandable, right? Explainable. But the thing is, we don't need to go to that much details. I mean, right? There is one method defined for doing that, and if we follow that, sometime it will get clear. Okay. Okay, some example is given. I will not go to that for now, but you can go if there is any confusion. But see, let us not try to complicate, right? If there is some constructors there, why do we need a constructor? I mean, why do we want to write a constructor if I'm getting my work done with 3, right? So we will not talk about that.
Yes.
All right. So now that we are able to, I'll move ahead. Okay. I'll move ahead because we will also have to, see how relationships are defined. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, somebody speaking.
I have a doubt regarding
Yeah.
session.
Ah.
Yeah, in the screencast servers using session.begin, we don't have to do that here.
Session.begin. Session.delete.
Begin, B-E-G-I-N, begin.
Oh, no. See, the thing is, screencast, we have also, I mean, in screencast, we have explicitly not used flask-sqlalchemy. We have used flask-sqlalchemy along with sqlalchemy also, right? So there we'll write, we will also talk about things like DB engine, okay, initializing engine, okay, and then we have explicitly given table names. So there are multiple ways of doing the same thing, but here it is not required. Simple flask-sqlalchemy. See, I am solely going to focus on flask-sqlalchemy. So in flask-sqlalchemy, you will not, you are not required to begin a session. Okay. Why do you not? Why don't you require to begin a session? Because whenever you create an object creation of object itself begins the session for you. So if you see this CLI, what I did, I simply created an object. Creating an object will create a session. I mean, begin a session for me in your, I mean, in that word, what we say, begin session, right? And then I directly added it to the session, right? So in flask-sqlalchemy, you don't have to worry about other things. Okay.
Okay. Can you show us a update?
Sorry.
Can you show us updating a tuple?
Updating, right? Yeah. So we will go to that. I will go to that. The thing is, if I mean, we can do that. Let's say, so what do you want to update? Tell me. Currently, we have a section called as history and a book called World War I.
So the book name World War I to World War II.
Okay. So let's say, see, this is how you go to the book name. So B1 is an object. So if I click on B1 and hit enter, it will see it is giving me an object, book 1. Okay. Now what this object contains, it is containing the name of the class from where it is coming, and I guess the primary key. Okay. Now if I hit on B1 dot book name, can hit enter, it will give me World War I. Okay. What you want to do is change it to World War II. So what I'll do, B1 dot book underscore name equals to.
So the spelling is not correct.
Yeah, I'll just check. Book M name, something came up. Okay. So yeah. Okay. So if I do this, it is changed. So if I go to B1 dot book underscore name and now hit C, I'll see it's World War II, right?
Yes.
Now,
so,
now one more thing. Yeah. Go ahead. Anything by the way?
So while adding, we had to do the db.session.add db.session.commit. While updating, it directly affects the database.
Yeah. So updating, no. See what happens here, when I created this B1, I have this object here, right? Already there in the session. So as I said, whenever I am having, whenever I'm creating a session or whenever there is a session, that session is a container which will involve everything, creation, updation, delete. I have this B1 already created with the name World War I. Okay, what I can do is I can change it to World War II, but this change has already happened in the session. If I go back to database and see, it is still World War I. Reload it, it will still be World War I. So to make this change effective in the database, at last, anything what I want to send it to database, I'll have to commit. Right? So once it is committed, then it will become World War II.
Okay, sir, good.
Okay, so update and all those things you can do. Your doubt was in order to update, do we need to create once again? You don't need to. Directly assignment is there, provided you should have the object, that particular object you want to update in the session already. Okay. If it is not there, you'll have to call it. We will go to that also. I mean, calling already existing values.
Thank you.
All right. So now okay. So I'll move ahead. to our code. So now that we have created two different tables, it is important. So since we were working with one to many, it is important to create a relationship between them. Okay. So now what happens is in here, when I go with the section, as I said, in our case, our section will be the parent, right? I mean, a section can have multiple books. Whereas the converse is not true. That is, a book cannot belong to multiple sections. One book cannot belong to multiple sections, right? So here, I will, along with the section name, whenever I'll create an object of book, along with the section, along with the book name, I will also have to provide what section it belongs to, right? For that, I will have a different column. Okay, so that I'll do here. Okay, so here I'll do set. Okay, and it should belong to some section which is already there. I mean, the section that is existing. Obviously, I mean, I will have to take one of the section which is already there in the database, right? So for that, first I'll create this column. So it will be a column, just like other, it will be a column. Okay. The type of data that it will be having within it is of the type integer. Why? Because whenever I will be linking it to the section, I'll simply link it to the ID of the section ID. Okay, so I'll just put it as integer. Okay, I'll just put it as integer. Next, now this section, how do I make sure that it is that section only which is there in the class section? For that, I'll have to take the primary key of that section and put it here, right? Now, when I take the primary key of one table and put it in another table, it acts as a foreign key, right? So what I'll do is I'll write db dot. Oh, it is okay. Foreign key. Okay, and I'll provide the foreign key. Now, one thing to note here. Now, this foreign key is something that is related to table. Okay, and it is not a class. Okay, foreign key is something that is related to table. Okay, a table, I mean, when I am referring to any other table or referring to any primary key of other table, I will refer to that table, not the class, right? So here I will mention the table from where it is coming. What is the table? Section. Okay, and what exactly are we talking about? Section ID. Okay, and this should be as a part, this should be given as a part of string. Okay, now you know this is the table name. How do I know this is the table name? Because how do I know that this is a table name? From here. Okay, so you may, in the screencast, you may have seen that there is a dunder variable created as __ table name __. Okay, that is not mandatory. Why is it not mandatory? Because if you do not provide that, your table name will be all small letter of whatever is your class name. Okay, so if your class name is section, your table name would be section. Okay, and this is evident in the in my database. See, what is the table name? Section. Did I give any table name to my models? No, I did not. So it will by default take the name of the class with all lowercase. Okay, similarly with the case of book. Okay, that is the thing. So instead of writing capital S dot section ID, this will throw me an error. Okay, that is what I was trying to explain. So the foreign key belongs to a table. So we will use not capital section dot section ID. We'll use small section dot section ID, which refers to the table name and not the class name. This one. Okay, is this clear?
Sir, if we directly create those tables, that class in small letter only, will that give any?
That is not advisable. You have to create your class name with capital, starting name capital. In that case, you will run into error. Why? Because here, if you give section, let's say if my table name was small s, right? So here it will assume that you are giving class name and class name and dot section ID. Okay, so you'll run into error. So it is recommended to have all the class names as capital, starting with capital letters. Okay. Right. So here we have this db dot section foreign key, and we will, sorry. Yeah, and we will also make sure that this is not nullable. So we'll set it to false. Why we are doing this? Why we are setting it to not nullable? The reason being, I don't want any book to not have any section. I mean, all the books must belong to some or the other section. Right? This is the requirement. Okay. So here, what I've done, I've defined a column which is of the type integer, which takes the foreign key from this section table and which is not nullable. Right. So this defines the relation. Now, to make sure that all right, let's go with this. Let us save it. Sorry. Okay, so this will define the relationship. Now, if I create the table, I mean, if I see into the database and create the table, I see that there is one more column with representing the table. Now, the problem is, I cannot work with this data. I mean, the table structure here, because if I go with the database structure, I'll see that there are 2 rows. In the book, there are 2 rows. It doesn't say the sect column which we have just now created, right? So for that, to make those changes, what we need to do is we will have to create the database from scratch. Okay. So for that, what I'll do, I'll simply delete this database. I mean, before that, I'll close the database and go to file structure and close it from here also, and I'll delete the database. Okay. Once this is done, I will recreate the database from my CLI. Okay. I'll simply exit from here. Okay. Then I'll open the Python interpreter. Okay. And from app import. Now that we know that what we are importing, I'll just write star. So we want to import everything there is. Okay. And then since we have imported star, we have also imported db. Create. Yeah. So now we will see that a database is created. We will load this database. This one. Yeah. So I deleted that file, right? Now we have one second. So this is another. Now if I see in the book section, I mean in the book table, I'll see that there is another column called section, which is if you see there is another key, but it is different side. So it shows that it is a foreign key. Okay. And also in the schema, you can see that foreign key is set. Okay. Right.
Sir,
all right.
So
Yeah.
I missed the last part. We deleted the database because.
So we deleted the database because the database that was originally created, in that the table book did not have sect as the new column.
Okay.
Okay. So if I try to add sect, it will give me error because there is no column. Okay. So so what I did was, instead of overwriting onto the table, I just created the database and I created a new one. How did I do that? By this command. So db.createAll did that for me.
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
Okay, so the new database created also has the new column that I created. Okay, so any updation that I do with the schema will require creation of database from the scratch. Yeah, Chandan.
Can we alter the field using the schema of the field, like using the command line without deleting the database?
See, as far as the schema is there, which is there. I mean, the schema that is there, you cannot do anything with that. So if I altogether added a new row, right? I mean, a new column.
No,
so
because
that
in the DBMS lecture, it was told that it is taught, in fact, that we can add field to the schema using some alter command, and it will be like a field with null values in the beginning, and then I can modify further. So is it possible to do here?
See, as far as I know, it may be. I mean, as far as I know, what we have been doing is, I mean, what we have considered, why we are taking this way of deleting the database is that generally working with SQLAlchemy, what happens is, when you link SQLAlchemy to the SQLite database, SQLite database is not very, is something that will not be able to handle so many manipulations. So what happens in many cases, the database might get locked. Okay, so once the database gets locked, you will have all the transactions. I mean, whatever your changes you're doing is a transaction, right? So all the transactions that you're doing will be held incomplete. Okay, that makes the database locked, and we might not be able to recover the data. Okay, so to avoid that problem,
with the SQLite. This has to do with the SQLite issue, or not the in general issue.
No, yeah, in general it is not there. SQLite, it is called SQLite because it is a lightweight database, does not handle so many complex queries. Okay, so whatever, so if there is an explicit command like something alter you are saying, I have not tried that with that, so I will not support that approach at this point. Okay, deleting the database is safe, and since we are only working with very small amount of data, we can get back to that data anytime. That's why we are not worried about getting a large data deleted. Obviously, if there is a lot of data, you might not want to delete your database. So there has to be a way, but that way currently I'm not aware of. Okay, so at this stage, we will consider deleting the data, right?
Yeah, that's
okay. So once, okay, so this database is created, and I guess it is new, right? So we do not have a section also. So we'll create some section, right? So we'll write S1 equals to section, and sorry, section name equals to, say again, history, and we'll create one book. Let's say book, book name equals to World War I, and this time we can also provide to what section it will belong. Okay, I know that why this is the first entry, right? The S1 is the first section that I'm creating, so it will have primary key as 1. Okay, then we will add both of these to the session. So we will write db.session.add S1. Okay, and similarly we'll add B1, and then finally when we want this changes to be reflected on the database, we'll commit it. Right, so here if I browse data, yeah, I have a book ID 1, book name World War I, and then there is one additional column called as sec, which refers to the primary key of section. Okay, so this gives me this gives me a relation that a book is connected to a section. Okay, since there is only one entry, we cannot define what relation that is, but we know that we have done one to many. But since it is only one entry, we cannot say, okay, it can be anything, right? So one book is connected to one section. Okay, we can also see like if I want to know which section my book is connected to, I can see here like this. So if I go B1 dot sec, it will give me 1, right? Is this 1 visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, because it's not visible for me.
It's visible.
All right, so it gave me, okay, this is the section that my book belongs to. Okay, yeah, my book belongs to. Okay, so now
sir, even after committing, these objects will be in the session, right?
Yes, objects will be there in the session.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so if you, yeah. So after committing only,
so when the object will be lost, when the object will get lost, I mean, right now it is in session, it is available to update something, but when it gets lost in some function.
So when I do db.session.close.
Oh.
Okay. Then my object will be lost one way. So this will not go out of your interpreter, but it will go out of your session. Other way, exit. It will go out of your interpreter. Session is anyway lost.
Yeah.
Okay. So there are two ways. All right.
So should we end the session so that no one can update? I mean, is it required to end the session in situation?
No, it is not required because mostly we will be working on our system, right?
Yeah.
So it is not required. It is not a security concern for now. Okay. For I mean, to take care of security, we will have other methods which are more, I mean, which work on database and not the sessions. Because see, sessions are created only for you to interact with the application, right? Actual changes are happening on the database. So it will be better to have security on database rather than on sessions, right? So later, when we will go with the security part of the application, we will have security on database, or rather code, the application that we will be writing, and not CLI. This is just to interact with the application. Okay. All right. So now, see, now the thing is, I can go from, I can find, let us go here. From here, with the help of this column sec, I can find this particular book belongs to which section. Okay. This particular book belongs to which section, that I can find from this column. Okay. But is there a way to go other way around? I mean, can I see all the books that are there in particular session? Right. Currently, with this stage, we do not, we do not have a way to see what books are there in a particular session. Okay. If it is there, we have to, write a lot of code. Okay. For example, let me go to the database. And if I see this book part, I will say, okay, I know the primary key of my section is 1. So I will try to retrieve all the books that belong to that section 1. Okay. So to do that, what I'll do is, I will create an object books. Okay. And then creating this object, books, how will I do? I will make query to the database. Okay, make query to the database. Now to make this more clearly visible, what I'll do is I'll add some more books and one more section to the database. All right. So let's say we have another session called as mathematics. Okay, we have another section called as mathematics, and then I will create one more book. Yeah, so see, if I created one object as B1, I can create another object as B1, only that my previous object will be overwritten. Okay, so that is doable. So let's say I have created this book B1, and this one is, let's say, algebra. Okay, and then I know that the mathematics section that I created is having primary key 2, right? So I've created this B1. Similarly, I'll create one more. Geometry, and I don't want it to overwrite, so I'll change this also. B2 is this. Okay, so I've created one section and 2 books. Now I want all this to go to the database, so I'll use db.session.add. Now the thing is, if I've written 100 objects, I cannot go on adding one by one, right? So other way to do that is, I can, instead of using add, I can use add all. Now what add all does is, it takes the list of objects that you have created. Okay, so I can write S1, B1, B2. So this is list of objects, right? All will together be added to the session, session, and then finally we will commit. All right, so these changes have been committed. So we have 2 books, and we have Yeah, so we have two sections here. One is history and mathematics, and the other one is having total three books, which is World War I, algebra, and geometry. Now, what I want to do is I want to retrieve all the books. So one way, I mean, the thing that we currently have now is that if I go with b1 dot sec, I'll get 2, right? Which means that okay, it is directly giving me the from the database, it is directly giving me which section my book b1 belongs to. But can I write something like this s1 dot books? S1 dot books, will it give me something? No, right? Because there is nothing defined into my code that gives me all the books that belong to S1, right? To do that, I can write I can write a small piece of code that retrieves that does things for me. So what I'll do, I'll write books. I'll create an object books, and then how to query to the database? It is to do like this, right? This is the class name. Then we'll use dot query dot query dot. Okay. Then we want to take only those books whose whose section is 2, right? Only those books whose section is 2. So what I'll do, I'll use a filter. Okay, so these are some standard 2 and 3 predefined things that we will be mostly using to query. Okay, till now what we did, we created some of the objects and added them to the database. Now what I'm doing is I'm trying to retrieve some of the objects which are already there in the database, right? So for that, what we'll do, I know that I want to retrieve books. So where must they belong? They should belong to book table, right, or book class. So here I'll write book dot query dot filter by, and then I know that I have to use sect equals to 2. Okay, now I need to retrieve all the books that belong to this category. I mean that satisfies this filter, right? And then when I print books, I'll have two books, that is book 2 and book 3. Okay, what this represent? Table book, I mean class book, not the table because it is capital B, right? Class book and the primary key. So this will give me all the books that belongs to section 1. Here S1, because S1 has primary key 2 in this particular case. Is this clear? But this is a lot of code, right? So if I want to, now let's see, if I want to find out the names of books which are there, what I'll do, for book in books, I want book dot, and we know that this is an object, right? Book 2 is an object, so we will all address it like an object, book dot book name, and this is what we want to print. Okay, so this is what we print, and if I go, I'll see that algebra and geometry, these are the books that belong to belong to a section whose primary key is 2. So a lot of code, right? Lot of code. This is something that we want to avoid. So to do that, we'll go back to our code. By the way, this is clear. What I'm trying to do is clear here.
Sir, I have a question here.
Yeah.
Can I do this projection operation also through filter by command? I mean the selection, the where clause in the DBMS, where clause in the SQLite is being replaced by filter by here.
Yes.
And what about the select clause? Can I do that too with filter by? I mean, you are doing it through a for loop.
Correct.
Can I use the one line code that you wrote? Can I extend that to only show me the name of the books and not
no.
the
So see, this object is actually doing select, right? Select books. I mean from books where the section, sect is 2. This is what you're doing.
Yeah, dot filter by is there for the where clause in the SQLite,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, and this query we are doing, right? This is our select. We are
it is selecting all the columns. It is selecting all the columns, like select star. So now I want to just select one column. Let's say the book name. Can I do that with the help of this one line code by extending it somehow? Is there another filter by that I can add?
Okay.
I mean, there are two ways of slicing a database table, right?
Yeah,
A
yeah. See,
selection
so
and a
what
projection.
happens? No, no. So you need to see first. You need to understand that whatever we are taking here as books will be a list. Okay, list of objects. It will not directly be an object because we are retrieving all. Okay, so if it is an object, you can use dot book name directly. If it is a list of objects, you will have to iterate through the objects one by one. Okay.
Okay.
Right now, what you are saying is to directly get the book name is what I'm trying to do now.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So I mean, so what I said, see, this is something right similar to this is what you are saying. Is there a way to do something like this? I mean, for the book, right? So this is what I'm saying is available because I have written the this line, right? A new column defined. Okay, so that allowed me to get to the section that particular books belongs to, right? I wanted to do the converse, that is something that I had written, right? Let's say this is giving me the section of a particular book. What I want to do is give all the books belong to a particular section. For example, let's say S1 is my section. So I want something like this. Okay. If I do this, I don't think I get something. Yeah. See, this is error. Why? Because it is not having any attribute. Okay. As an alternative to this, I wrote some pieces of code. Okay. And then I've also told that the way this is written, I mean, a lot of code, and then finally coming back to the name of books, this is indeed a very, I mean, tedious task, right? So write all the book, then go through the for loop. Now we will go back to a way directly defining into the classes that will give me this thing, s1.books. Okay. Yeah, Chandan. Hey, by the way, this doubt is clear.
What if we write the list bracket books? I mean, we are not writing dot to anything, just book, because books is already defined. So if I add list and books, will it give the answer list of the books? Because it's stored in some memory, no?
Yeah, yeah. So see, I've written books here. It directly gave me the list of books.
So if I write, okay, but to retrieve the value, we have to iterate only. There is no way out.
Yeah.
Okay. So these are.
Yeah, so it is actually the list here in our case is actually a collection, right? So what we are doing is, since it is a one-to-many, a section can have multiple books, right?
Yeah.
Therefore, whenever I'm trying to retrieve all the books a section will have, I definitely have a collection of books, right? How to represent that collection? I mean, how that collection is represented with the help of list.
And what is the book representing here in the angle bracket?
This one?
Class name or table name?
Class name. It is capital B, right? So it
yeah,
is a
yeah,
class
name. Okay.
Yeah, and it is actually an object. So in that, whatever comes within the angle bracket is an object. That is the reason I could write book dot book name.
Okay, okay. So you are going to class and then I mean invoking the field of the class. I mean, like. Okay.
That's all. So whenever I retrieve something, it will be retrieved as an object, not directly the record. I mean, yeah, it will be record is same as object. I mean, the object in my Python file is nothing but the record in the table.
Got it.
Okay, and then each attribute I'll see book name, book section, and all. Right. So that I'll. Okay. So the converse, right? I was trying to get all the books. I mean, all the books that belong to particular section. It give me an error because it says that there is no attribute called as books. Okay, so how to deal with that? We'll go with other thing, that is, okay, so we have defined section here. What we'll do is we'll define something called as books here. So what this does is it will be I mean, it will give me a variable that will collect all the books to whom I have given that particular as a section. For example, is this statement clear? See, for example, what I'm doing, I created these two books. Okay, B1. What is the section I gave to? Okay, so when I will add this book to the session and when I'll commit this book to this to the database, what will happen? that books, this variable books will, I mean, it will contain the book that I've added. I've given section as 2. Okay, so I mean, let me repeat this. So for example, I've created 3-4 books. All right, and then for some of these books, for example, these 2 books, I've given section 2. Okay, section 2, section 2. What will happen? That particular collection books will have all the books with common sections. Okay, what I'm trying to say is, I'll try to write in the code.
It's like group by function using something
like a group by, yeah. So it will create a group, and then it will be very easy for me to reach that group with the help of particular section. Okay, so that is what we are doing here. All right, so how do we do that? We create relationship. So we call it db.relationship. Okay, we create this column db.relationship, and what, with which table, I mean, we want to form that relationship with book. Right? This is a table we want to form relationship with. Okay, now let me save this. Now what happened? I've created a column, but this column is not, I mean, a real column in the section, right? It is just a collection. It is giving me the privilege to add all the books that belong to that particular section. Okay. While adding a section, for example, here, while adding a section, I'll write section name, and I don't need to write what book it belongs. For example, I don't need to write another column as books, just the way I've written in section, right? So it is not an actual column. It is a simple collection that is provided to me whenever I use db.relationship. So I'm not doing any change to the database, I guess, right? So any change to the schema is not done. This means I don't need to delete the database and rewrite it. Okay, this change will be made only that I'll have to close this session. Okay, so let us try db.session.close. Now the session is closed. What I'll do, I'll create another object. For example, okay, if session is closed and if the data is still there, let me see if I can do B1, sorry, S1 is the section that I will try to retrieve from the database. This is section dot, how to retrieve a section or a particular entry from the database. We'll write the class name, then query, then get. See, initially I had written filter by, now I'm writing get. Why? See, get method is defined when I know the primary key. Okay, if I don't know the primary key, I cannot use get. Okay, I'll use some other method to retrieve. Okay, but if I know the primary key directly, I can use the get method. This is same as form, right? In form also we'll write request, I mean request.form, right? Request.form, and then if I want to get the value of attribute, we'll write request.form.get. Similarly, here get is used only when we are dealing with primary key. Now I want to retrieve, I want to retrieve this mathematics, right? Because I know that there are 2 books and the primary key of that is 2. So what I'll do, I'll write this. Okay. So this S1 by default will take the section mathematics. To prove that, we'll go to S1 dot section mathematics, right? So get method will allow me to directly retrieve a record if I have the primary key of that record. Okay. Now initially S1 dot books did not work. Let's see if it works now. Okay, it is not working now. Why? Because let us go back to database. Yeah, this is not working now because we have to write everything. I mean, import the DB and classes and all again. Why? Because initially we imported, initially the DB and the class and the book that was imported did not have this functionality. Now it has. So we have to import it again. So one way to do it is simply exit and then we'll come back to this. Okay, we'll run Python. Okay, now from app import all, right? We don't know what to import, so we'll import all. Okay, then we will write, again we'll create that object S1 is section dot query dot get. It was 2, right? S1 dot books. See, so now if I work, now if I try to get the books, it will give me a list of books that were directly associated, right? So if I go to another section, for example, S1 is not the 2 this time, it is 1. So what was the section that was? I guess it was history. So it should return me 1 book, right? So S1 dot books. It will return me 1 book which belongs to history here, right? In the section it is history, and in the book it will give me 1 book, right? Now the thing is, I'm writing book 2, book 3, book 1. It is not clearly understood, okay, which book exactly I'm retrieving. By the way, before I go to this, is this clear? Okay, is this clear what this book's relationship is doing, what this is doing? Is this clear? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Clear.
Yeah, so if there is any doubt, just let me know. I'll try to clear that.
So I have one question. In case like we are using here SQLite.
Okay.
If we have to use MS SQL, so in that case the rest of code would remain same, and like just will have to call another library or something else.
No. There, in that case, you will only change this.
Okay.
Right. So what we are doing here.
For that purpose, I think we'd have to give a connectivity path now.
I guess so. See, in the documentation, let's see in the documentation what it says. Yeah. So so this is using SQLite, right? So let us go to a place where it is showing some relationship, a configuration, right? So we want to know the configuration. Configuration keys. Yeah. All right. So if you see here in MySQL, as you said, yeah. So it requires some username, password, and key and stuff, right? In MySQL database. Only this will change. SQLAlchemy database URL, only this will change. In that case, your database will itself change to MySQL. All right. If there is at all any change in the way queries are written and data are retrieved and clauses are used, you don't have to worry about that. SQLAlchemy will take care.
Okay, yeah, could you pass this link, sir?
Okay, this is just let me. Okay,
okay,
this
fine,
link,
fine. I'll get it.
Yeah, I'll just copy.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So in this whole thing, we are actually interacting with an object which is a database defined as DB. Yeah, mostly. I mean, yes. So we are. So it happens. Everything is happening with object database. I mean DB. That is the whole point, because we are instantiating DB with the SQLAlchemy. So all the all the methods written for SQLAlchemy are inherited by that object DB. Okay. And if you see all the options, committing to the database, creating the database are initiated with has the prefix db dot, and everything is later, right? So it happens, everything happens on db. One thing you need to know, whatever you are interacting is here on the CLI is this session. Once you make changes concrete, you have to commit it to the database. Finally, then it goes to the database. Okay. So I hope this part is clear. Okay. So
Sir, can we assume, can we interpret like books is a kind of dictionary which is mapping section ID to the respective books, like who has the section ID, like books is a dictionary is mapped section ID to books. We can say that, no?
Okay, not exactly dictionary. You can consider it to be a collection.
We can interpret like that. We are like one is mapped to history and two is mapped to geometry and algebra.
Yeah, that's what. So see what is happening here. The relationship this db dot relationship is establishing that relationship so that you can directly access all the books that belong to the section. And what section? The section you are creating as an object here, right? So I've created S1 in the object. I want to know what books belong to S1. So it will do the job of what I've done here as a part of code.
Okay. Okay.
Right. So not dictionary, because see, if you see here, S1 dot books, what did it give? It gave me a list of object, right?
Yeah.
Correct. So now if you're considering it as mapping, you should map like this. Okay, so your mapping should be this, nothing but this, the book table. So you're mapping the book name, I mean the book ID or book name with the sec. So whenever I give S1 dot books, I should, sorry, S1 as in the object that book where sec is 2, I will by default it will help me retrieve all the books that has primary key 2 as sec. Foreign key, I mean in this case foreign key.
Yeah. Okay.
Sir,
Okay.
what does the variable S1 store right now?
Currently it stores the primary, I mean currently it stores the record whose primary key is 2. In this case it is, so in section, right? So in this case it is mathematics. So did I change that later? All right, so S1 dot books gave me the book that book that had section history. Okay. Yeah, this what. So there is a slight confusion whether this book 1 is what is S1, and what is book 2, what is book 3, what is section. For example, if I write B1 dot sec, okay, B1 is not defined, so it was out of the session, right? So it will not be defined. Anyways, so let us go back to section again. So it was whenever I said S1 dot books, it gave me something called as a list of an object that is book 1. It is not very clear what exactly is book, what exactly is 1, right? So we can also make changes to this. Okay, we can also make changes to this. Let us try to do that. Okay, so how do we do that? Here we'll write a constructor functions or a wrapper function called as wrapper. Okay, its argument is self. Okay, now what it does is it returns a string what we want to come as an object. Okay, what we want it to appear as an object. For example, if I write it as this, okay, and I want it to be let's say it should give me book. It should give me book, and then some %r and this, and then again %, and let us, I guess, self dot book, sorry, section name. Sorry, I have to change this section here also. Section. Let me see if this works. Similarly, I'll also write the same for books. Okay, so I'll write it book name. Okay, let's see if it works. Okay, so I'll just exit and do that thing. So in Python, from app import star. Okay, and then we'll create an object called S1 equals to section dot query dot get. Now if I write S1, what do I see? I see section history. Initially I was having section 1, okay, which was not giving me any idea what section it was belonging. So now directly gives me section history. So it becomes very easy for me to understand what does S1 is contain, right? So how did I get that? With the help of this refer function. So it, so if I change this also. Okay, same thing with the book. So if I get a new book, book dot query dot get, I don't know the ID. Let's see. So okay, 2. I know 1 2. Okay, book dot query dot get 2. So if I go with B1, yeah, it should give me book algebra, right? So it is working with the books also. So this is more intuitive because I come to know that okay, we are talking about an object that is algebra, which is there in the data. Okay, so that is why we use this refer functions. Okay, this is one thing. All right. So now the thing is, we have created we have created this books. Okay, there is one difference in the way we are getting trying to get this object. Okay, what is the difference? I'll show you. Okay, so we have both the sections, right? So both the sections are there. Okay, so if I write s1 dot books, I get book World War I. Okay, this is the book that belongs to S1, a list of object. Okay, no issues. All right. But if I write B1 dot sect, B1 dot sect, I get 2. I'm not getting a list of object or an object. Okay, but I want an object. I want to know what is this 2, right? Are you getting what I'm trying to say here? I'm saying that the way these things, these two operations, S1 dot books and B1 dot sect are retrieving information from the database is different, and the way they are representing the data information to us is different. Okay, what I want to do is I want this information to give me. It should be the information should be uniform. For example, if I write S1 dot books, I should get this. If I write B1 dot sect, I should get something like this. An object which would say section and then space and then okay. So what section are B1 belongs to? History, right? So it should give me this. Whatever it is, I'm not sure if it is history only, but it should give me something like this, right? So if I write B1 dot sect, it should give me something like this. Okay, or even if it is not sect, I should be able to write some, I should be able to define some other variable which says b1 dot section, and it should give me something like this, right? Now you need to also observe one more thing, that when I write s1 dot books, I write it plural. Okay, and when I write b1 dot section or sect, I write it as singular. And when I get to this information, s1 dot books, I'll get a list of objects or object. If I do this, I will get directly the object and not the list of object. Why is that? Can anybody want to give it a try?
Many to one relation.
Yes, correct. Relationship. Why? So when I am referring to books of a section, I will definitely have a collection of books. And whenever I am trying to address a section of a book, it will definitely be a single object, right? And it is pretty evident from here that for s1 dot books, we are getting list. For example, if I have one more book which has history as its section, it will give me book World War I and let's say book World War II. Okay, a list. But if I go to b1 dot sect, it is giving me simply the primary key of that particular section, because it will be a single section. I just want this 2 to be more intuitive, something like this, right? Defined by a proper, again, an intuitive variable, that is section. So what I'll do, the way I've done this here, similarly, I can do something like this here, right? Right. So books and section. Okay. And then I'll write db dot, relationship Now this is relating to what? Section. Initially it was relating to books, right? And this is relating to section. So in book, I will write db.relationship. This is dn.relationship, not db. Yeah, so db.relationship section, right? The class name of here, of this class name here. And if I write books, db.relationship, again the class name of the model that I'm trying to relate it with. Okay, so I'll try to do this. I've saved it, and then we'll get some error here. Don't worry. Yeah, so exit, come back. Sorry, from app import start. Right. Now we will create one object. We will create now new object, right? So it will be S1 section. Name of the section, let's say literature. Okay, section 1 literature. That is all we need here. Okay. Oh, sorry. I will have to mention what is this, right? It is book name. Sorry, section name. I have to mention that what I'm passing as an argument. Yeah. So now it did not throw error, but it showed a big warning, right? Some warning, essay warning. Okay, we will read out what that warning is, but since there is no error now, we'll proceed. Okay, so I've added one section, that is S1.
I have a small doubt here. I mean, the doubt I will put on the Discord also.
Okay.
That when we call the relationship, the first argument we give is the class name. You wrote book or section. But when in many relations, I think many relations, the secondary is given as a table name, not the class.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So that's what. So we will.
Have to confuse.
Yeah, that's what. So this is see, currently we are working on one-to-many. We'll talk about that when we talk about many-to-many relationship. One thing. Secondly, that is similar to what we have done here, right? In db.foreign key, we do not give the class name, we give the table. Okay. Why is this? Because we are setting a foreign key that is relating to a table, not the class. Okay, foreign key is an attribute of table, table and not the class. That is why we have to give section.section ID. I mean, this section, first section, the section here highlighted, should be the name of table and not the name of class. Right. Similarly, that thing is taken forward for many-to-many relationship. When we use secondary, the table name, the value of that secondary must be a table name and not the class name. Okay, so you can consider this db.foreign key and secondary to be the exceptions where you will use table name. Everywhere else you will use class name. Right? If you see here, db.relationship section, it is a class name. Here it is a class name. While creating objects in our CLI, everything is a class name. Okay. Okay, so is that fine?
Is there any clear distinction, like when to think, like, I mean, conceptually it should invoke naturally that you have to use class name or table name, or it's like something we need to just remember as like some information, how to go
see, in general it is class name. Okay, so whenever you will write something, invoke a method, call something, it is a class name. Okay, now there are two attributes, that is foreign key. Okay, foreign, see, this is db.foreign key is something that is relating to a table and that does not relate to a class. Right? If it does not relate to a class, you cannot use a class name, right?
Yeah, it means if only one field, or maybe if it is like composite field, let's say if the foreign key is the composite, is it possible to have the composite field as a foreign key?
Composite field as in?
Means two fields makes one foreign key.
Yeah, that is possible. We, but for that, we, as far as I know, we need to have a table where two fields are for primary key, right?
What happens if all fields, like the entire table, becomes the foreign key? In that case, can we invoke the class directly without referring to table?
I am not really sure for that, but I guess in that case, see, if every column becomes a foreign key, I mean, you have to represent this for each and every column, right?
Yeah. So is it good to go directly go with the class name in such case? Is it some exception like this?
No, I don't think so. Will class name help you? Because a foreign key is not related to a class. It is related to a table.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and if you want to anyway remember something, just remember that in case of foreign key and secondary, it will be table name. Otherwise, everywhere it will be class. Okay.
Sir,
yeah.
here in books, under books, we are giving section equal to db.relationship.
Yeah.
What is the purpose actually? Anyway, we are giving foreign key, right?
Yeah, correct. So I'll just show you the purposes now. That's what I was trying to show you, right? So I gave that and then I showed this. All right. So I wrote S1 equals, okay, I've created one section and then let us create one book. Book name, theory of everything. Okay. And then you can also, I mean, you have to give the class name, sorry, the section name, section primary key to this. So let me just see what is the primary key. We go to section. So the new section that will be added will have primary key 3. We can write here 3. Okay. Then we will commit this S1 and B1. S1, B1, and then we will commit these changes. Right. So yeah. Now this is little, yeah. So we have this name literature, and then we have this book 3, and this is the thing. Okay. Now the data is added. Okay. Now I'll retrieve the retrieve some information from the data. If I write B1, sorry, let's say if I write S1 dot books, what I'm using this part, right? So it will be S1 dot books. It will give me book 2, correct? If I use B1 dot sec, it will give me the primary key, right? Now, what I said, I wanted something which is intuitive to me. Okay, which section exactly the B1 belongs to, this book B1 belongs to. So rather I'll write B1 dot section, okay, which is this thing which I've defined. Okay, on doing this, let me see what I get. Yeah, so on clicking this, I get section literature, which is more informative than this simply 3. Right. So the primary foreign key column that I've defined will give me only the primary key of the section, because I've defined it that way, right? It should have integer value. Okay, but this is again a collection. Now this is a collection which will have which will always have a single entity. That is why it will not come as a list. It will come as a single object. Right. So but this is the difference.
How do it know that we have to give the literature name? Is it because of the
yes. Yes, I've defined it the way that way, right? It should give me it should specify what it is. It is a section, and then it should give me the section name. Okay? So this function you can manipulate it the way you want. Let's say you don't want section name, you want only section ID. So you can just write here section ID. It will give you section ID.
And that relate to the relationship, like. Is that tied together?
No, see, any object that you get will be tied.
Okay. So section relationship will return a object, and that is represented.
Since it is an object returned, it will have this format.
Okay.
Correct. So it is not so this this refer function does not have to do anything with this relationships defined, it is in general related to any object. Okay, so if I'm retrieving data, if the data retrieved is object, I'll have this format for that object. Okay, right. So this books and this section are nothing but the collections which are giving me more, I mean, which are relating. So whenever I create a new object, whenever I create a new book, give it a section and store it in the database, I will this books variable will I mean hold that section as a part of collection. Okay, which is very easy to retrieve rather than writing the code, right? To retrieve it from the database by querying it, then coming back and then writing the for loop and this, right? So this gives me directly what I wanted to know. Correct. Now if this is there, b1 dot section, I got this, right? b1 dot section, I got this directly. This is directly the object. Then I can do whatever I want with this object, right? So this is what I'm trying to do. What I did, I created this section here also for the collection, here also for the collection. The only difference is this books is having this books we can have multiple. I mean, this collection can have multiple entries. Therefore, I've given books as plural. This collection will not have multiple entries. It will strictly have one entry. That is why it is simply written as section. Okay, so I'm using variable
with
names.
that, like with that, it is returning a section object, right?
Yeah, yeah.
b1 dot section. So
yeah.
with that, if we give that section b1 dot section name, or how do we refer it to, like
Yeah,
if
you
we
can do
want
that.
to get
Yeah, you can do that.
dot section name.
Yeah, yeah. I think this should work. Yeah, see.
Okay.
It is an object. All the attributes of that object will work.
And is it possible to have multiple table in a relationship?
Multiple table as in?
Like if we have two table related to book.
Two table related to book. Can you give me a scenario?
Author and section or something like that.
Yeah, you can have, right? So you have to explicitly define, for example, see
db
the
dot
section,
relationship dot section, kind of
correct,
like again one more.
Yeah, that you have to do. But you have to again create a class called author.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you can do that.
Okay.
I mean, if you are, so why we are doing this? What we are doing, we are trying to establish one-to-many relationship, and we are doing it only for two tables, between two tables. Is it necessary that it will, I mean, there will be only two tables in the database that will have only one-to-many relationship? That is not there, right? There can be multiple table who will share multiple type of relationships, right? For example, your author. So if I also add an author here, author and book. So a single author can write multiple books, right? So that accordingly you have to define. This is we are studying only for understanding purpose. Once this thing is clear, then you can define as many as you want. Okay. Now, with this part clear, we will try to look at this warning. What this is showing. So what it is showing that what actually happens is whenever you write this, what it does is it creates a collection based on what? Based on this foreign key, section.section ID, and section.books, right? So section.books is not a column, right? That is created in the table, but it uses section.section ID to create an imaginary column which is there, which can be called as section.books, and store all the books which have same section ID, right? It will store. So this is happening internally. Let me repeat this. So whenever I create these books, what it will do is it will make the use of this foreign key attribute that I've created here. What is this foreign key? Section.section ID, right? It will map this section.section ID with section.books, and create a collection for all the books whose section is some particular single value primary key, let's say 2, 3, whatever it is, right? This is happening in the background. We do not have to explicitly add some values for this book attribute whenever I create a section. Okay, so this is what this warning is saying. What is saying? Relation book.section will copy column section.section ID to column book.sec. Why? Because that is foreign key, which conflicts with the relation. What is it conflicting with? It is conflicting with this new thing that we have added. Right? So what is this doing? This is also trying to do the same thing. It is this books.section, book.section is trying to call map section.section ID with book.sec. Okay, don't have to worry about what book.sec, book.section, what I'm saying. I'm trying to saying here is something is happening for a collection to create with the help of foreign key, with the help of this line. Okay, what is it trying to do? It is something it is doing to create a collection with the help of this foreign key. Okay, what is this trying to do? Again, it is trying to create a collection with the help of this foreign key. Both the things are doing same thing, and therefore there is no error because they are doing the same thing. That is the reason you are having overlaps, right? You are having overlap because I mean it is like having two things redundantly doing same thing, right? So what it says, all right, if this is not the intention, consider if this relationship should be linked with back populates or if the view only is true. Something is written. What it is showing to silence this warning. I don't want to know what is happening. I don't want to clear because my code is not showing any error. So I'm not bothered about what is actually happening. What redundancies I'm having with my database, I'm not really bothered. So what I'm doing to silence this warning, add a parameter overlaps equals to books to the book.section relationship. What it says, some redundancies are happening. Two things doing the same mapping with section.section ID, which you should avoid. I mean, this warning is saying that which you should avoid. Okay, but this is not showing any error. So I'm being a very amateur coder. I'm saying that okay, if it is not showing any error, I'm not bothered with what it is showing. Okay, so rather finding a solution to that, what I'm doing is I'm trying to silence this warning. Okay, to silence this warning, what I have to do, I will just have to write this. Right, you just have to write overlaps books. Okay, let me check. Overlaps equals to books to the book.section relationship. What is the book.section relationship? This one. And you will have to write overlaps equals to books. This is what you have to write, overlaps. Okay, now if this, considering this, we will try to see again what happens. Yeah, so initially when I go back to creating a section here, so when I created the section literature, it showed with this warning, right? A lot of, sorry, till here, a lot of stuff said and not understood, right? Now we made sure, okay, something is happening. I said what is happening, and we did not find the solution to that. We just suppressed that warning. So with that suppression, now it just took it. It did not show any warning. How is this possible? How this became possible? By using this overlaps. So overlaps suppresses that warning. Okay. And now if I create a book, say B1, I have to also provide the primary key, I guess, for.
Can we do the similar thing like auto increment for this sector also? Or do I need to mention every time 1, 2, 3, 4?
Auto increment, it is already It is actually happening, or it is actually auto incrementing in the database. That is the reason what I'm trying to do, I am trying to add a book to the section that I'm creating previously, right? But since this session is not, this section is not committed to the database, I'm just, I'm pre-assuming that it will take the primary key for. Okay. Is there a way to avoid this? Yes. We will see that later. db.session.add s1, and then similarly b1. Right, so committed. So what happened? Everything happened same. Initially it was not showing any error. Now also it is not showing any error, but initially it was showing warning. Now I suppress the warning by using overlaps. That is what I've done. I have not found the solution to this, right? The redundancy is still not taken care of. Okay, so if we go back to database, we'll see that, okay, these things are there. Section parts, right? All right, is this clear? So this is why we use overlaps. Any doubt here? Okay, so we are okay. 40 minutes ahead.
Just one doubt. Like if we see this entire like code, so we define like books equals to db dot relationship. Just can you show me the outline? What is code is translating itself? Like the relationship goes to which section of the book class and how it relates. Because in the relationship we don't mention the field name. We just had the the class name, and that relates with what, like which field, primary, like, or any field.
So if you have paid attention to that warning clearly, it relates to section id. It relates to the foreign key. Okay, so what happens is, if you remember, so see, manually what did we do before? Manually what did we do?
No, sorry, like just explain through the code, like how the code is interacting between each other.
Okay,
and then come back to this.
Okay, fine. See, so what will happen is, initially we did not have this. Okay, we did not have this. We only had this foreign key.
Right.
Okay. Now, when I wanted to retrieve only those books which belong to a particular section, what was my approach? My approach was to make the use of this foreign key. Right.
But how
can I go to database?
Yeah, no. Like how this is making, how we are making the use of foreign key using the class name. That is my doubt.
That's what. So this set, right? This is the foreign key.
Yeah.
This foreign key, if you see, I've added algebra also to the section 2. Why? Because let's say this mathematics is having primary key 2, right? So what I added algebra to mathematics. I added geometry to mathematics. Okay. That is the reason that sect column for both algebra and geometry is 2. Okay. So why I'm using this column? Why I've created this column? So that if I want to retrieve all the books that belong to this category mathematics or this section mathematics, I'll make use of this set column and see all those rows whose primary key, whose secondary key, foreign key is 2. Right? That would be my approach.
Yes.
To filter out all those books whose section is mathematics. Right? Even in the code, we did the same thing. Right? We took the object and filtered it such that its sect is 2.
Okay, so we just need to keep the relationship ready, and the moment we want to retrieve the value, we can just invoke the object the way you.
That's what I did. So what I did was manually, right? Now what are these things doing? What are these things doing? These things are also, section.books is also using section.section ID. That is, it is using foreign key. Okay, and store all the books that that satisfy my condition of belonging to section mathematics, and it will store it in the collection. Okay, so this book db.relationship, it is also making the use of foreign key only and that table only. to create that collection. Okay, so it is creating that collection for me and making it accessible with the help of this books attribute. How is it accessible? This s1.books. Does it make sense?
Little difficult for me to as a font digest, but okay, fully I'll get it later.
Okay. So see, I mean, how it is doing internally, how it is using the foreign key, how is it making as it as collection?
I mean, I'm not able to visualize. Like, I mean, okay, the code is okay, but I'm not able to like make a visual map to all this code. Like the code is like very much like code only. I'm not able to see through it. That's my problem.
Okay.
Like maybe you can annotate on some paper, like by drawing the basic database and showing that this code is invoking this and going there. And because see, I mean, why I have this doubt, because I'm not able to understand where is the grouping happening, because we haven't used anything like group by, but it's still the grouping is happening because of the defined relationship itself.
No. So you see, okay, so let's just say we use group by in background. What do we need? We will need the section, right? Whose group we want.
Yeah.
Okay. And the list of all the books.
Yes.
Right. These two things are required. If you are to develop some code, you will need the. I mean, you will require that particular. And I mean, if you are to develop some code in the background, right? You develop some code, and now you want the user to use your code.
Correct.
Okay. What you will define that whenever user gives the section name,
yes, we should give the name of
it
the
should
book.
give all the books of the name. I mean, all the books belonging to that section. Right. Let's say that code is written. Okay. Now here, if you see this S1, what does it say? It is an object which refers to a section.
One. Yeah, section 1.
Section 1. I mean that section with primary key 1.
Yeah.
Right. So your code says you first write the section name or the section object. I mean, whatever section you want, you give it to the object and use that section.
Yeah.
And use this variable books. I mean, and then what will happen? Using the foreign key, which is the second requirement of your group by, you retrieve that as a part of list and store it in books. Okay. When will this happen? When will this happen? As soon as you provide S1. So the code will know, okay, I need to add only those books in the books collection which belongs to S1. Right? And then when I simply hit enter, it should print that collection. Okay, so in background, this is happening. What are the two things you have given? One is the primary foreign key. Okay. Now, how does the code know that this is the foreign key? Because we are stating that this is the foreign key by this.
Just a moment. I might not be clear here only. The books we have defined as a relationship between the section and the book. Okay. And the book is taking the foreign key from the section itself. Why we are defining the section again here, db.relation, because the relationship is if established, then why we need to define once again?
That's what. So that's what I explained here. What I did imagine you did not have this. You don't have this.
So do we need this one? I mean, for this code to run the way it is running right now?
You don't need.
So why we have it in here? Like,
yeah, that's what I'll explain. See, so what I did, imagine you don't have this. Okay, the confusion comes when this thing is written. Okay, so imagine you don't have this. Here, this foreign key is used, and here this relationship is defined. Done. No issues. Yeah. But what is happening here? Now see what is so why am I doing this? To access my books and sections, right?
Yes.
Access as in see if I write.
You see, very simple. You wrote a query to get the book belonging to particular section. Okay, so that is what you written in the beginning. Get the book belong to a given section, whatever it is, having primary key 1. Yeah, and then once you invoke this, it goes to which part of code? Like after from here, it goes to the foreign key of the this code in the book. Like how it is working internally. Like you write this code section, that query, that get one, which is clear, and then you go to S1. Okay, so that gives the primary key. Then you go to S1.books, which is defined in the book section of a book class.
See, so as soon as you mention S1 and dot books, what it will do, it will create a collection as a list called, it will create a collection of objects. What will be the objects? It will create, that collection will have all the objects which are book objects.
Yeah.
Okay. Now it will not have all the book objects, it will have only those book objects which belong to S1.
Yeah.
This is what we are trying to do. Okay, now see, whenever I wrote S1.books, S1.books. Okay, this was defined, right? So whenever I wrote S1.books, it gave me a list of objects which are nothing but the books that belong to S1 section.
Yeah.
Correct?
Right.
But if I want to go conversely, I mean, I want to see what section my particular book belongs.
Yeah.
Okay, one case is to see all the books that belong to particular section. Okay, which is this S1.books, and you get this. Okay. Second is to find out the section of a particular book. Correct. So if I write this b1.sec, what did it give me? It gave me the primary key of section which it belonged to. Correct. But getting primary key of section which it belonged to was not giving me any information. It was not giving me any information. Okay, what do I make out of this two? If I do not have the access to database, what do I make out of this two? Right? So if S1.books is defined, will it not be good if I have something called as B1.section?
Yeah.
So it will give me directly the proper section name of that B1.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So to do that conversely, what I have written this. You forget about this overlaps for now.
Yeah.
Okay. So you assume that this code ends here.
Right.
So what similarly, if I had this S1.books,
and then after that the wrapper will do the rest.
Yeah. That's what. Wrapper is something that is related to object. Whichever object you deal in the database, it will format it the way you have written it here. Doesn't matter it is coming from where.
Okay.
Right. So let me go back here. So if what I did, I did that, I wrote that, and what I did now, this is S1.books, right? B1.set, it gave me again 3. But if I wrote B1.section, it gave me a single object, which is more intuitive, right? It gave me that your B1 is a book that belongs to a section that is named as literature.
Right.
Correct. So this is something that I achieved from this. Okay. Now what is this overlap stuff? So what happened when I did this, or when I created this option, what it did give me? It gave me a big warning.
Yeah,
okay. Right. Big warning that you're trying to do something and there are some redundancies. What you're trying to do? You are, you are getting a collection of books using the foreign key. You're getting the collection of section using the foreign key. Why do you want to do that? Because this is creating redundancies in the database.
Yes.
Okay. So this is something bad is happening, but this is not an error. Okay. Nothing is getting exploited. Spoiled in the database. So that is not an error. Okay, so if you either find a solution to this or suppress this warning. To silence this warning, if you read this, to silence this warning, add a parameter overlaps equals to books to book.section relationship. So what I did, I went back to code and I added overlaps equals to books in book.section.
Please go ahead.
Okay, so when I did this and then I added an object which is here, it did not show me any warning.
Yeah, right.
right?
Yeah.
Is the problem solved? No.
Yes.
I
Yes.
just suppress the warning. No. Your problem is solved. I'm saying this one.
Yes. Yes.
Whatever
This
was
one,
happening
yeah.
here, this problem is not solved. It is only suppressed.
Suppressed. Yes.
Okay. Now, how to solve this problem? This is where a term called back populates come in.
Okay.
Right. So till now we have simply defined relationship, db dot relationship. Then we got some issues. Then we suppressed it using overlaps. Now I don't want to suppress it. I want to solve it. I mean, I want SQLAlchemy to take care of that redundancy. Okay. How do I do that? I do that with the help of overlaps. Sorry, back populates. So simply what I have to do, I'll have to write here back populates, back populates here. So what it does, it back populates to this books. Okay, and same thing has to be written here. Back populates, but this time it should back populates to section. Okay, so this wherever we are defining this relationship, those two are interchanged. So back populating this section, and this back populates this books. Okay. What will that do? It will not suppress the error. I mean the warning. It will solve it for us. It will remove that redundancy and create a single column wherever we want to, whatever you want to retrieve. Okay, let's try this. So to exit. Okay, then S1 equals to section name. Yeah, so see again, if I created a section, it should I mean, if that was not taken care of, it would have again given me the warning, right? So it is again not giving me a warning. This means I have not only suppressed the warning, but I've taken care of with the help of back populates, right? So this is something that we have done. The only thing with back populate is that we have to provide back populates in both the tables, I mean both the models. Okay, so this back populates to that relationship, this back populates to this relationship. By the term, it is I mean pretty understood that back populating is you are merging both the entries. You are not creating two different entries and showing. Okay, now if that is the case, let me add this S, and then let me add a book one book also. Okay, so I've given book name, and then what it is, I guess it is 5. Yeah, so every time I'm trying to remember what the primary key it was, right? It is kind of a headache. We will take care of that. Don't worry. Now that these changes are committed, I'll write S1 dot. So S1 dot books. It will give me book ABC2. I wrote 4. Okay. ABC of music is what I meant. And then if I write B1 dot section, it will give me section music. Right? It is working fine, giving me intuitive object. I mean, which makes sense. Okay, it belongs to a section that is music. If I but that I mean, I've not deleted that sect row, right? So if I write b1 dot sect, it will give me 5. It will still give me that, but this is something that I won't use. I can use this, the previous one, b1 dot section, which is making more sense, right? So back populates also, sir, I mean back populates also work the same way, and also suppresses the removes the redundancy. Yeah, so there is a message. I mean, there is a query that what about writing an exact SQL query code for whatever action we require and execute it by engine and store it in the variable. You can do it as long as you make sure that whoever you share your code with, your friends, your portal where we are evaluating, use SQLite database, right? So if the database remains same, your queries will work fine. If the database changes, and if there is, so this will not happen with every query, but if by some reason, some formatting, some syntax change, your code will not work. Right? Where to get all query syntax to be used? I did not get this question, Chandra.
No, actually, whatever code we are writing here, like this dot query dot filter, so where we can read about the same, like we can read and get acquainted with the syntax.
Okay, flask-sqlalchemy documentation.
Okay.
So see, if you go with, so this is about configuration, right? Let me go back and create a minimal application. So it will tell you how it is created, how models are created. Okay, and from here you see this.
Yeah.
This is where it shows. Okay, similar, and then there are declaring models. So you go to, yeah, so if you see this, insert, delete, right? These are all the CRUD operations that we are going to perform. So it will show you how these are, right? Now this will give you basic idea of what actually, how to add, how to delete, and then once you are done with understanding all these things, then you can add it in your code and make controllers of that. That is what we are doing. Okay, that is what we will do in the following when we create the application. Okay, so this is about one-to-many relationship. There is only one thing that we have not done here, that is, now see, backpopulate is what it is doing. It is taking care of that redundancy. It is allowing me to access both the things. Okay, I'm sorry for the background noise. Okay, so it is allowing me to access both the collections from both the objects. Okay, but you have to write it, I mean, both places, right? You have to write it at both places. If I don't want to write it at both places, I'll use something called as backref. Okay, and backref also has one more important feature for one-to-many relationship. Specifically for one-to-many relationship is taking care of this sect, right? I'm explicitly, I mean, finding out from the database that, okay, this is the primary key, that this is 5, and then putting it 5 here, right? Backref takes care of that. Okay, so we will, I guess, since it is 7 o'clock, I guess it is getting pretty late,
just,
and also, yeah.
Before closes, just I have one question. Like, I'm facing problem in creating that environment, the virtual environment.
Okay.
So when I'm going into like my another directory, and from there I'm trying to like create this virtual environment, I'm facing problem. It is giving me error that just I'm sharing the error. It is showing that there are no such file or directory.
Okay, so what was the command you gave before it showed this?
I gave Python venv, and
no minus m is missing. Minus Python 3 minus m, then the venv, then the dot file name.
Okay, Python minus m.
Yeah, minus m.
Okay, just a minute.
Python 3, I think. Python 3 minus.
Yeah, so I created the virtual environment by writing this command. I'll just write on chat.
Okay, what I said was in Ubuntu actually, as sir explained in the Steam class.
Okay, my env being the name of my virtual environment.
Yeah, it is taking some time.
Okay, this means it will be,
Sir, do we get a report on week 3 and 4 assignments also?
yeah, you will get.
And can we expect some extension of the deadline for the week 5 assignment, lab assignment? Because it's really tough for us to digest everything at once because there's so much screen task. Like, it took me 3 days to finish the entire screen task. And probably I will be able to start now, and the next week is also pending, and then other subject is
It
also
worked. It worked. Thank you.
okay. So
Okay,
because
see,
once you will
I
finish,
mean,
then we can start.
all right. Yeah, so I mean, I'm not sure about extension C. That is not in my hand. I mean, I can just forward it to the team. I mean, so that something can be done. I'm not sure. I mean, I cannot give you a word that it will be.
No, that's we can understand.
Yeah.
The
So,
only thing is like
your concern will be forwarded from.
Yeah, I mean, it's like they are too much to like digest at once. Like the alchemy came, then light came, then the syntax came, all like host of syntax which we never saw before, and then so it's like for anyone who has not done before anything, like we have just gone through the regular Python code in this course itself. So for us, it's really challenging to comprehend and then execute at the same.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, so I'll just try to put it to the team. Let's see what happens. Okay. Okay, fine. So there was one short thing that is backref, which I think I can show, but there are only so few participants have left. So I think that will not be possible now. So what I'll do is tomorrow's session. Yeah. So as I said, there is also a session tomorrow where we will be continuing the same at same time. That is 4 o'clock. Okay. So where we will start off with the backref. Okay. Then we'll finish it. So backref. Then there is one more topic that is, since till now what we have done, we have created and retrieved data from the database. Now the thing is, and I've shown a glimpse of update also, but the thing is, things become tricky when we want to delete something from the database, right? So that is something that we'll see tomorrow. Then we'll talk about many-to-many relationship, and then finally go on building the application. Okay.
So we will be building the entire application here in the live session.
Yes. I mean, what is the application? Whatever we are doing here, what is our interface? CLI, right? Instead of that, we will have front end. I mean, HTML pages. The thing that is getting rendered as a web application, you should be able to write book name, whatever is there on the application on the front end, submit it, and then have it stored in the database. Okay, so this is like a small, a light version of your lab assignment.
Yeah. So this is really helpful. I mean, to be very honest, the screencast was something like too heavy for beginners, but this simplified a lot of things for me. I think I can feel like okay, I can do eventually, maybe after the deadline at least.
Yeah. Okay, fine.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. So yeah, so you go through this session and see tomorrow's session will be built up on this. So a revision on this session. I mean, whatever 3 hours we have taken, just a glimpse of. I mean, a small. You can just fast forward and see, and come back tomorrow. It will be helpful. Right. So this is for everybody, right? So if tomorrow's session, you can just watch this session, whatever I've taken this 3 hours once again, how we have built up with creating 2 individual independent tables and then creating the relationship and looking at the intricacies that were there. Okay.
Yes, it would be helpful, sir.
Yeah, correct. And as I said now, there will be one component of deleting the components that we will see tomorrow. Backref will see tomorrow. Many-to-many relationship we'll see tomorrow.
Also, just add one small like a help from like the environment that are used in the like Python-based coding, and the OS command, like how to understand those OS command and the environment command. Just a small.
Okay. So this you are using OS command to get the directory name. Right?
Yeah, directory part. That part like it's like a bit confusing.
Fine. Well, but see, since we are already ahead, we will not take that now. But we will take it later.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I have noted that down. We will take it. Don't worry. Okay, fine. So I guess whatever I've told now is probably enough for this today's session. We will continue on this tomorrow, same time, right? So I guess is the announcement sent for that? Did you all receive?
Yeah, it is set.
Right, no? Yeah. Thanks. Okay, fine. All right. So we'll close the session now and then come back tomorrow at 4 same time.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, fine.
Hello. Hello, sir.